Now you're probably wondering why I'm back here again, and the reason is pretty obvious if you follow me on Instagram, or you've watched a couple of videos where this has happened before. I lost control of my chair to Smokey. But that's kind of apt for today's topic of what-ifery, because Gohan loses control too. It's like my cat knew what the situation was gonna be. So, thank you, Smokey! Yeah, nobody likes to show off. Anyway, today's What If comes from a suggestion made from one of Haverock and I's What If round tables, which you can catch on Thursdays at around 4 or 5 PM Eastern. There, you can suggest your own what ifs for us two to assess in real time, as well as help support the channel in the days of numerically based viewing suggestions. Oh, it's so much fun. We've lost control ourselves. Man, this video is getting very introspective, isn't it? The suggestion itself has come from Philip Perkins, and he responded thusly. What if Gohan was like Broly, rage form, stronger as he fights, the works? Now this was something a little unusual. Yes, it's all very well and good having Gohan have more of his rage boosts like we see in the original. They're basically his calling card within the series, especially in the early days of Z. But what Philip is suggesting here is something to do with what things that the original Broly had in regards to his persona. What if Gohan was like Broly in that regard? Is this going to be like Super Saiyan Rage though, Masako? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens in the what ifs. You're going to have to keep watching where this goes. But if you want to have a chance of getting your ideas mused into a possible video, then join us for the round table on Thursdays. However, in order to make things not that simple, we are going to put a little bit twist on Philip's suggestion. The subject of Gohan and his place in the story is quite the interesting one. His role as the first ever Saiyan human hybrid, on record that is something of a great curiosity to all. How these two forms of DNA work with each other, or in some cases possibly not work together, is something that is pretty much unknown. Gohan is an enigma and a very mysterious combination, but where we are starting today, nobody suspects a thing, since the Saiyan revelation is still but a distant event in the future. As far as everyone's concerned, both Goku and Gohan are fully human. We start this story well after the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament has taken place, in which Goku won against Piccolo Jr. The former got married to Chi-Chi, and life was about to calm down before the 5-year time skip we got before the start of Dragon Ball Z. Years of this follow. Piccolo Jr., training in solitude one day, is constantly replaying the memories of the day that he thought that he was done for, but instead was spared by Son Goku, the person that his father had charged him to face. Having been spared unexpectedly, Piccolo became even more of a recluse, choosing to shun public life altogether and instead focus on bettering himself and maybe getting the chance for round 2 against Goku when the time was right. It's a quiet life, but he always has Tom. Suddenly, he gets ambushed by 3 mysterious men. The attack is pretty brutal and it almost costs him his life, which alerts Kami, obviously. Something is wrong. The older Namekian is left wondering if it was Goku who had attacked Piccolo. Kami is still alive, but he is greatly weakened, barely able to stand up with his staff. Mr. Popo runs over to Kami and asks what is wrong. Kami doesn't acknowledge his friend, but he just tries to relax and check on Piccolo's situation. Was it really Goku who had defeated his other half? Meanwhile, in the house of Goku and Chi-Chi near Mount Paozu, Gohan is taking some gifts from his grandpa, the Ox King. The joyous family celebration gets interrupted, however, by the same mysterious beings that attacked Piccolo earlier. They kidnap Gohan and the Dragon Ball as well. Whoever these beings are, they are now very much on a mission to get a wish from Shenron. Chi-Chi tries to defend her son, but she is unable to do so. And sadly, Goku arrives too late and has to go to Kame House to get the Dragon Radar, which hopefully will help them locate the menace whoever took his child and the ball. This may have been a really grave event, but at least the Dragon Ball will act as some kind of tracker, so that means they can find Gohan. That's the only plus in this case. Now I bet some of you are about to shout, "But Masako!" But I will stop you. Yes, movie 1 of DBZ is the backbone of this scenario, but we will get to where it diverges in a moment. Meanwhile, we discover that Gohan and the Dragon Ball have been delivered to none other than Garlic Jr. This This is the part where you're meant to be shocked. Yeah, I know, I was struggling too. I mean, it's Garlic Jr. He reveals his evil plan, as well as his willingness to turn the son of Goku onto his side. Yeah, Garlic Jr., Piccolo called, he wants his motivation back. He is successful in his schemes, like in the original movie, manages to summon Shenron, and then wishes for immortality. Just about the only villain in Dragon Ball who actually gets the immortality chestnut, save for Zamasu and Super, of course. He then gets surprised by a sudden visit from Goku, Krillin, and Piccolo, as well as Kami. Garlic Jr. then reveals who he is and tells the story of his father, and then goes to fight Kami, because this is personal. Later on, it's 3 versus 1 against Garlic Jr., who changes into a transformed state, just him without a shirt. The two rivals seemingly defeat Garlic Jr. and are about to throw down amongst themselves while the villain opens the zone of the movie name. At this point, something happens. Something that means that we are about to split from the original Movie 1 timeline, but in a way that is a little familiar. Krillin arrives, screaming out for Gohan to show himself, so that means they can get out of there safely. But Gohan doesn't need rescuing. He is absolutely furious. Instead of just being really angry, Gohan has changed a lot despite being quite small. The little man has empty yellow eyes. Any signs of the innocent and sweet child are gone. Gohan appears like a wild animal, and also appears much more bulky. Garlic Jr. spots Gohan, and is stunned at the sudden transformation.
What the? I thought I was the only one who could bulk up like this.
He doesn't even get to finish off his quip. Instead of, simply pushing Garlic Jr. towards the zone, he literally beats the tar out of him. Nothing showy, nothing flashy or anything, just a straight up hulking. The boy is sparking with a green aura, and in a feral fury as he slowly pushes Garlic into the zone. Goku, Krillin, and Piccolo are left surprised at Gohan's power. But then Goku is starting to get very frightened, and it's not very often that Goku gets frightened. The energy is very scary, something that he's never felt before, and something that could tear his son asunder if it's not stopped soon enough. However, after that is all said and done, and Garlic Jr. is thrown into the zone, never to be seen again, at least in this what if timeline I can assure you, the child starts to destroy everything around him. Well, I say destroy everything around him even more, because if my memory serves me well, things were pretty rubbly already. I think we just skipped 7 movies at this point, didn't we? Goku is really having a hard time trying to control the boy, as he has basically gone totally loopy. Even Piccolo is left lost for words. This power is greater and more wild than anything he had ever seen. His father's power was very pronounced and concentrated, sure, but to see all this power frantically sparking all over the place was both fear-inducing, but also kind of impressive. Ultimately though, Piccolo is shocked by this display of power, but the one to be able to actually stop Gohan and calm the child down is Kami, who catches the boy by his tail using his guardian powers and puts him to sleep effectively. Kami looks to Goku with a look of, "Why didn't you think of that, Goku? I had to do this to you before I cut yours off, remember?" Goku looks surprised, but then remembers that is exactly what happens when one has their tail pulled like that.
"Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, man, it's been so long since I had my own tail, I didn't realize. Thank you, Kami."
Kami nods with confidence. "I may be old, but I've still got it." When the adrenaline has subsided, Krillin and Goku originally decide to not tell Chi-Chi about this. The moment she realizes that her son is basically just like Goku, it may crush her. My son is a delinquent and all that jazz. But as they are then heading home with Gohan in his arms, Goku can't shake off the memories of seeing his son just fly off the handle like that. He is surprised and even a little bit worried by this display of power, and in the end, he changes his mind and decides to tell his wife after all. It kind of reminded him of the whole great ape thing, and he didn't like it. So, upon their return, he briefly discusses removing Gohan's tail with Chi-Chi, just in case. He says that Kami can do this painlessly, and that he had the Guardian do it to his own tail. He didn't feel a thing, if he could remember correctly. For a moment, Chi-Chi doesn't say a thing, and Goku's worried that he has upset his wife about even mentioning about Gohan's surprise power, or even cutting off a tail. But he doesn't get the reaction that he was expecting. In fact, Chi-Chi is kind of surprised herself. Chi-Chi is pretty flummoxed that Goku is the one, not her, who is worried about this kind of detail. Surely he would want Gohan to have his tail, since when did Goku care about stuff like this? Oh, well, I mean, she had been thinking about this herself, and so decides to agree with Goku and decide to get the tail removed. Once the boy comes to, he is taken by his parents to Kami's lookout, and he promptly removes Gohan's tail. The boy is a little unsteady on his feet, having gotten used to having a tail, but he is slowly acclimatizing in his own time. The older Namekian then suggests that he can help direct Gohan's newfound power in much less leery ways, as it's both fascinating and a little terrifying. He tells his mother that here on the lookout, the boy can be taught everything there is to know about fighting, being able to concentrate your mind to greater things, and, here's the most important part for Chi-Chi, have all the scholarship education that he needs. Kami's library literally has everything. Kami, having watched over Earth for 300 years at this point, basically knows all that Earth has to offer in terms of knowledge. He is basically the best encyclopedia out there. Goku and Chi-Chi then discuss this and they agree. Truth be told, Chi-Chi actually feels pretty honoured that Kami himself wants to help her son. And also, honestly, Chi-Chi was sold the moment she set eyes on the library. All these books and no rental fees? Think of the money they'd save! That being said, they remember that Gohan is not a teenager. He's only 4 years old, and to live up here without his parents would be a little much for the young boy to bear. So, to not take the boy away from his parents for too long in stints, Mr. Popo is the one who offers to take Gohan up to the lookout on his magic carpet every few days for some lessons with Kami. Kami is much more patient and calm of a teacher than Piccolo was in the original story, if you remember. And, hey, unsurprisingly, the rage boost does not activate during Gohan's lessons at his place. One day though, Bulma, Krillin and Roshi decide to visit Goku's place. Luckily, it is the day when he doesn't have lessons with his new mentor, Gohan. And everybody is pleased to see Gohan, albeit some of them are surprised because they've not seen him before, but he's looking pretty calm and pretty carefree. The happy atmosphere is plain to see, and the day is a very fun one. That is until Raditz shows up! As in the original, he reveals his goal and purpose to Goku. After his brother refuses to cooperate, he lunges for his nephew Gohan and threatens him to comply, or else he will take his son as bounty for Lord Frieza. And now some of you out there might be thinking upon seeing this that, oh no, a one-sided brawl is about to start. Gohan starts to cry and wriggle around, and Raditz tries to silence him, but the child stops his fist with his own open hand, despite the size difference being considerable. Remember, Raditz is a tall boy. The Saiyan is shocked, especially when the child frees himself and goes for him with punches and claws to the face with no trace of predictability. Raditz did not anticipate such strength from a mere child, and tries to defend himself, but Gohan forces him to retreat, going as far as scarring his eye. Gohan starts to chase him, and Goku goes after them, dreading about what might happen, now that Gohan is stronger than before. Piccolo then joins the chase as well, as he is well aware of the danger that the boy can cause, having liaised with Kami telepathically periodically. They are able to find Raditz cornered by the little boy, who is getting angrier and angrier by the second, and even starts to shoot ki blasts from his mouth. Raditz then decides to go all out. It doesn't matter if this brat is family or not, he will not be bested by an infant. Raditz launches a full double Sunday upon him, but his attack gets deflected, and he is vanquished by his own attack. Ooh, nasty. In his last breaths, he reveals the knowledge of 2 more Saiyans, while Goku tries to calm his son down. But Gohan is too furious and treats Goku as a potential enemy, and then blasts him through the chest with a mouth beam. Oh dear. Piccolo is then left alone with the revelation of there being 2 more Saiyans swirling around his mind, 2 who are much stronger than Raditz, and even the rampaging Gohan. Kami then has to intervene and manages to calm Gohan down, but decides not to tell the boy that he has actually vanquished his own father by mistake. Piccolo keeps that in mind for later. It might prove to be useful information. The 2 halves of the nameless Namekian decide to call it a truce. They have to join forces to prepare Goku's friends for the Saiyan arrival, as well as even standing a chance of keeping this out-of-control child in check. This is something they didn't want to do, but Piccolo is fully aware that not to do it may mean there might be no Earth left for the Saiyans to conquer or for them to defend. Kami reveals that they will bring Goku back once the Dragon Balls are ready to use again, and meanwhile, he can train with King Kai. He also admits that he has a failure in helping Gohan to contain his power, and he reluctantly asks Piccolo to help him. The boy's fate is now in the hands of the nameless Namekian. Kami and Piccolo have a very hard task before them. Two extremely powerful forces are on their way to avenge their fallen comrade, as well as find out what this power is all about, what it's supposed to be, and they have no idea the sheer extent that these powers convey. They also have to train Gohan harder than ever before, all the while trying to then break the news about his father's passing. Ah yes, that. If they told him the truth right now, while he is at his most vulnerable, and the fact he's like 4, this might awaken an even greater power that may put the world as they know it in danger. But by lying to him about this fully, this might lead to something bad coming about later when the power is let out of the bag for some reason. In the end though, they have to think of the here and now and tell the kid that Raditz was the one that felled his father and not him. Now, as you would probably expect, Gohan is upset by this, but fortunately for everyone around him, he doesn't erupt in a ball of energy. Kami's tutelage thus far has proven to have been worth it, but there is still much need and desire to try and get a handle on his explosive temperament before the Saiyan invasion in just under a year's time. Now, of course, there is another thing that the two halves of the nameless Namekian have to accomplish, and that is to try and get along with each other. For you see, both of them have pretty different training regimes, as we know from the original timeline and story. They're very different people. Whilst Kami is the patient one, keen to try and understand and control the overflowing energy of his pupil, and thusly channel it, better their overall skills, Piccolo just tries to push the boy through sheer brutish behaviour, which is unfair to do to a kid, which in turn annoys Kami greatly and pleases Piccolo on the main side. Things are getting out of hand, and they are just going around in circles, and nothing is being done that will better Gohan in the long run. They have to think of something else. Kami tries his best to try and reason with his other half, but Piccolo simply doesn't understand what the other point of view actually is. He can't. He literally can't. Kami is saying that by enacting too much pressure on the boy right now, it might have a negative impact and cause another berserk episode, another attack, one which they will be completely unable to stop with Goku not here. There may not be an Earth for the Saiyans to conquer if Piccolo fully gets his way and Gohan goes off on one. And despite this plea, the more sinister half is resolute in his direction. Piccolo reasons that they need to accustomize Gohan to stressful situations. They can't protect him and mollycoddle him anymore. It's becoming quite clear that Raditz was just the start of a new era of outside stresses and interventions. So Piccolo is trying to introduce to Gohan a background level of stress, so as to make the kid comprehend what these feelings are, always know them, and thusly make him less likely to lash out when things go bad. From now on, the kid needs to always be stressed. I know that might seem unfair or heinous to your fragile ears, old man, but it's the only way the kid can lead a somewhat normal existence. Meanwhile, despite these twos bickering with one another, the rest of the Dragon team are getting the special training that they need to help at the lookout. There is an ulterior motive for this though. Not only can they get the training that they require to be, relevant at this time in the story, but they are also there so that they can take a peek at Gohan's training. Keep an eye on the boy and check on him, as well as maybe, discovering a little bit of extra knowledge for themselves. As they figure out the inner workings of Gohan's training, Tenshinhan is not so sure if that training is going to help the boy in the long run, as for now, he considers him to be just a ticking time bomb. Tenshinhan knows all about discipline and inner concentration, and simply just throwing a bunch of books and a library in the kid's direction may not be the only way to calm the child down. After all, he's a kid, not an adult. Kids are quite different. Yamcha and Krillin echo these sentiments, to a lesser extent though, but regardless of their reservations for Kami's ethos and training, they are all aware that the boy might be their only option against the upcoming Saiyan invasion. It's taken them half a decade to get where they are right now, and they were training a lot. What they can try and do in a year, like way more than they had done before, It's a very big task, so quite frankly, any kind of overpowered mess is better than having no overpowered mess. Now throughout all of this, Gohan is beginning to grasp the overall situation, and fortunately, is not exploding at all. This relieves Kami and aggravates Piccolo, him still thinking that this plan isn't going to work, and scares Ten Shinhan, who is now off his game instead of focusing on his training. He's effectively keeping watch on Gohan instead of just bettering his own stuff. He's trying to juggle two balls at once. And as that's all going on Earth, Goku is busy running down the length of Snake Way to meet King Kai. But we're not going to be focusing on that bit too much since, well, it's not all that much different from the original story, so really there's no point in lingering on this bit. Goku might be a little bit more thoughtful in this one though overall, since he now realizes the reason of his grandpa's passing sooner than before, and that his own son has now followed him in his footsteps in regards to that trend. Goku has that moment of crisis on Snake Way and begins to feel incredibly remorseful for him causing Grandpa Gohan's passing, and now the fact that his own son has done the same thing to him. He couldn't help it though, and the best thing to do right now, instead of just dwelling on this and just wallowing in his own self-pity, is to put all on the side and fix the predicament flying through space towards them. A few months later, Gohan's training seems to have had some positive results after all, much to Piccolo's dissatisfaction. Kami is now polishing off the rough edges left by Piccolo, and after a while, the boy seems to be more manageable. It's almost, for once, like the whole initial revelation of Gohan's rage and his ki overflowing never happened. If only that were true though. Being able to witness firsthand in particular is Chi-Chi, who is growing to accept something quite important here, and not like her way in the original. She now fully understands that training and martial arts are an absolutely necessary and vital part of her son's future upbringing, although she has a great urge to punch Piccolo in the face on a few occasions due to his tough love approach, tough being the operative word here. After a few more months, the fateful day arrives when the Saiyans invade, and as in the original, they start their tour of the world by destroying a city, with Nappa doing what he does best, and having his best day ever. The Dragon team were on the lookout when they sensed the two Saiyans arrive in the upper atmosphere of Earth, and they quite simply had to cut their training short because they've now got to go and deal with that mess. So they used up the sensu beans in readiness for such an appearance to happen, and headed down to Earth to get ready to meet the Saiyans and hopefully get them to go away. Maybe. As for Goku, he may be revived now thanks to the Dragon Balls, but he has still got to get his way back to Earth through Snake's Way, and will be a little while in doing so, hopefully not as long as it was in the original. This time, however, there has been a noticeable benefit in having Gohan's power come to the fore much more fervently than before. Because of this extra exposure, our heroes do a much better job against the 6 Cybermen, which pleases Nappa actually, who expected a decent challenge and he's gonna get one. And hey, Yamcha gets to do a little more here guys, cause, you know, he's still alive. Isn't that what we all wanted? Really? That famous crater is nowhere to be seen in this scenario, haha! Nappa rushes against Chaozu, Yamcha and Ten Shinhan, and easily overpowers the 3 of them. Yeah, sorry guys, they didn't get that strong thanks to Gohan. But surprisingly, Krillin is the one who is able to land some damage on the giant. Nappa had gotten used to being able to body these human weaklings, that by the time Krillin managed to do something to him, it angered him more than he expected. Nappa is so angry in fact that he tries to go on his own rampage, but the Earthlings know all about rampages by now thanks to what Gohan did back in the day. This proves to actually be less overwhelming than what Vegeta's lackey had in mind. The Dragon team are trying to hold him off long enough for Goku to have a fair chance of getting there, with hopefully no casualties having ensued, but it's a monumental task. However, it does prove to be something that they are just about able to pull off, and Goku arrives with everybody still vertical. The 2 Saiyans are shocked to witness Goku and his current power level, and I can tell you, it's over a certain number and it ain't 9,000. In a rather fearful fit of rage, Nappa then takes out both Ten Shinhan and Chaozu. They're out of the picture, with Krillin being able to save Yamcha. So I may have been able to have Goku arrive to see his friends, but now that he has seen them, he now gets to see them pass right before his eyes. Yeah, well, there is Yamcha here to be fair, he's still around. Nappa's next blast is meant for Gohan, but as in the original, Piccolo sacrifices to save his life. Yep, Goku is here to see all this happen before he can do anything about it. This selfless act of Piccolo's is enough to activate Gohan's berserk-like form, and the boy goes for the older Saiyan. Vegeta is absolutely shocked to see the little boy absolutely wrecking his comrade, and at the end of the day, taking his life. So Vegeta doesn't get the satisfaction of doing so himself, like in the original. He is not a challenge for the prince though, as Vegeta does manage to beat him up, when Nappa is now merely a pile of ash. Next, we have the whole Goku and Vegeta fight, with Krillin trying to take Gohan out of the picture and out of the danger zone to safety, despite his more wild personality. Gohan is chomping at the bit to get back in there and help, but Krillin is able to just about hold him in check. Oh man, I wish he still had his tail. This would be so much easier with that. But thanks to the beating that he got from Vegeta, he was in no condition to resist Krillin. The fight goes very much as you would expect, with Yajirobe coming to the rescue and cutting Vegeta's tail off. And at the end of the day, however, when Krillin is about to end the prince's life, attack him, Gohan does it for him. Vegeta has been badly hurt, even more so against Goku's wishes. Now this is greatly worrying Goku, who now has to heal his own wounds and take care of Vegeta. During the whole process, Gohan calms down, but this time becomes really withdrawn, until Mr. Popo comes along with the idea of our heroes traveling to Namek to bring back Tenshinhan and Chaozu. Yeah, this time around Gohan is more aware of what his rage boots can do, and this is now beginning to scare the kid, and I mean a lot. He hadn't fully come to terms with this before, but now he has to himself. The crew going to Namek would consist of Krillin, Gohan, who wants to aid in reviving his masters and friends, even though his mother is protesting greatly, Bulma, and Yamcha. The four of them are getting ready to go to get to Kami and Piccolo's home planet. Meanwhile on Earth, Goku is left wondering about his Saiyan legacy, and how he seems less and less eager to allow himself or his son to pursue it. So our heroes have to go to Namek to fix this mess, unaware of the bigger picture at play. Would they think it's that easy? Well, with Gohan here looking down and out despite, in theory, saving the day, things are going to get very hairy. The team consists of Krillin, Gohan, Bulma, and Yamcha. And throughout the journey to the mystical world that is green and that is named Namek, Yamcha is trying his best to make his peace with Bulma, as the tensions between the two weren't the best right now. You might not recall that Yamcha had not really been A-grade boyfriend material at the time, but here, this is his best chance to save that relationship that these two have, which is certainly better than what Yamcha got in the original. Hopefully any hugs he has with Bulma end up better than the ones that he got from a particularly friendly Cyberman. Poor Krillin and Gohan also. They are also left feeling very ambivalent about the whole situation. Krillin, having only just properly met Gohan, is feeling very responsible for the son of his best friend. If Kami couldn't really help the kid's plight, then what good would he be right now? It's a lot of pressure. Right now though, both of them need to handle their mood swings, which luckily works for the trip to this planet Namek. The half Saiyan remains calm and in control because, as you might have guessed, there is no fake Namek. Moving on. Naturally, Gohan isn't forgetting what had happened on Earth though. He doesn't feel good with what he did. Even though Vegeta was clearly a bad guy in his eyes that was about to finish off his father, he needed to be stopped, there was just something not quite right in the way that he offed the prince. It didn't leave a joyous note or anything. It was nothing like what his father had told him about the miracle that they were able to defeat the tyrant that was King Piccolo. This recent victory was hollow and fraught with worry. It was just not a good feeling. He himself seems to be worried about his own doings and tries to find solace in learning and talking to Krillin. Kami did pack some books from his personal library that might provide a light distraction, and even Krillin is getting some kind of appeal from them. As he's pouring through the tomes himself, Krillin is left wandering around with not much to do, aside from the occasional passing through a book. He gazes at the little guy, and when he is witnessing Gohan at his best, he has a thought. Krillin realizes how different Gohan is from Goku, and ponders about the whole Saiyan thing. How does it work? Might what happened with Gohan happen to Goku? Or did it already happen with that changing into a great ape? Or does Goku's full Saiyan nature provide some kind of filter that Gohan lacks? It's all so confusing right now. Why couldn't things go back to the way they were just a year or so ago? It was so much simpler then. No aliens, no Saiyans, just Kami House and the chance to relax. Though he tries to think that maybe space will make Gohan feel more at home and less nervous, in space, there's plenty of time to reflect even more. Although in the downtime they have, Gohan is laughing and acting quite normally for his age, internally, he wonders if him staying in space might be safer for all concerned, his family and friends. Maybe he shouldn't come back to Earth when all of this is done. Maybe he might be better off on his own, where he can't hurt anyone he cares about. This is all very, very deep stuff for someone of his years. But before he can dwell any further on this, they finally reach planet Namek, but they are not alone there. Although Nappa and Vegeta may be gone, and not providing that much of a burden, an ongoing one for our Dragon team, Frieza still did overhear the whole Dragon Balls conversation whilst they were on Earth, and he wanted to check Namek to see if this was actually true. Besides, he had nothing better to do, and hey, the prospect of living forever? Yeah, well, it intrigued the Emperor somewhat. Not a lot of things did these days. He feels that the presence of the Namekian world might be the thing to really seal himself as the eternal Emperor of the galaxy. And hey, if it turns out the Dragon Balls are just a myth, this is free real estate after all. Upon settling down on Namek and getting a good reading of the land itself, their senses are then being contradicted. The peaceful and serene scenes of Namek are not what they're sensing right now. Our heroes are utterly terrified when they feel all these huge, menacing power levels around them. This does not feel right. This doesn't make any sense. These readings surely do not belong to the Namekians, right? I mean, how could they? Oh man, I knew I should have stayed home, quivers Yamcha, before looking to Bulma and steeling his resolve to try and make himself look good. But Bulma sees right through this. She just simply rolls her eyes and gets on with preparing their home away from home. Man, Bulma, you sure are lucky you can't sense energy right now. As Yamcha tries to put a brave face on things, the power out of his mind, they begin their mission to gather the Namekian Dragon Balls so that they don't need to linger any longer than they have to, as well as giving the innocent bystanders through all of this a chance to get out of Frieza's way. They rush to one of the villages to warn it, only for it to be promptly encountered by Zarbon and Dodoria and then destroyed. Just as in the original, they do still rescue Dende. There is one hairy encounter throughout all this though. Gohan is furious. He's livid to see all this injustice going on with the placid Namekians. They did nothing wrong, to the point where he starts to spark with anger. Uh-oh. With Gohan almost berserking out on Dodoria, our heroes have to act quickly to save everybody from being affected, not just Dodoria. With Yamcha and Krillin doing some quick thinking, they manage to take both the Little Saiyan and the Namekian away from the Frieza Force grasp before Gohan can reach the point of no return. And hey, Little Green joins the party too. However, as in the original story, Dodoria is starting a pursuit. These guys have to walk real fast, and as there is no Vegeta to distract the rampaging pink minion of Frieza, this is an extremely dangerous situation our gang have found themselves in. But Krillin manages to blind their pursuer with a solar flare, while Yamcha and Gohan hide in a nearby cave. The gang hunker down together once Krillin has done it and look towards the energy of Dodoria. It hasn't moved, and it seems to have been very badly struck with the flare, much more so than usual. Here's hoping that that scouter is just as scrambled. They are, fortunately, very lucky. As Dodoria's vision returns, he is about to check on the scouter for where these powers went, but he is then called back by Frieza to join his side. Dodoria, cease this wild goose chase at once, and do something useful. The tyrant wants to know if he dealt with the Earthling threat. Not good. He can't admit that he lost these weaklings so easily. I mean, that would look bad. Instead of dealing with the boss right now and being honest, Dodoria chooses to lie, as he doesn't want to get on Lord Frieza's bad side. And this really seems to work for the moment. Or is Frieza pretending? It's unsure to say right now, but the minion doesn't really care, so long as he's still living. The ruffian then tasks someone else to deal with the Earthlings, him pulling rank, as they don't seem to be that much of a problem. The one to do this will be Kui. With no Vegeta to chase, Kui ended up being part of Zarbon and Dodoria's posse, traveling with Frieza around Namek. But since ranking the Frieza Force is a very important thing, Dodoria had consigned Kui to doing menial jobs on the ship. Who's gonna stop him? Now though, the purple mook had proved to be a great distraction. As the game of passing the buck goes on, Dende tells everyone about Guru and what he can offer the team, and Krillin recognizes that this might be the only thing and hope that they can get, save for getting all the Dragon Balls without Frieza finding them, that could actually be of benefit to them. They manage to reach Guru's tower without any issue, masking their powers as best as they can, and through Dende are able to explain the whole situation to Nail, so that means he doesn't end up going on the offensive. As much as I dislike the idea of outsiders messing with our way of life, I sense you're being genuine in wishing to help us. Guru from inside the tower is just as insightful as his assistant.
Despite your size and lack of strength, your hearts are mighty. I will help you save our world in any way I can. That Frieza must be punished.
Guru unlocks their potential with not much fuss, and explains his ill state, and that their search for the Dragon Balls mustn't dawdle. Our heroes need to hurry and get the Dragon Balls before the Frieza Force does, or before Guru passes and nobody can use them. At least now, with their potentials unlocked, they stand a relative chance against the regular Frieza soldiers at least. They also explain Gohan's explosive temperament to the Elder, so Guru advises them to leave the boy with Nail whilst they gather the Dragon Balls. Nail should prove useful in being able to help him with his anger management, while the other two would visit the villages and tell them to evacuate. Well, I mean, the villages that Frieza and his men haven't encountered yet. On their way around the planet, they then have to stop off back at the base to collect Bulma, who is quite worried that the Frieza soldiers might end up finding her and destroying any means for them to being able to get off the planet, as well as the only person who could actually pilot the ship. However, this proves to be a very problematic detour. On their way to their first village, they get ambushed by Kui. Kui is only slightly weaker than Dodoria, but Krillin and Yamcha do what they can against the alien, as their potential has been unlocked, as well as unlocking a new level of confidence, so it seems. And the odds may be stacked against them, but they're feeling lucky. What also helps them in this challenge is that Kui is pretty full of himself, which gives Yamcha time to distract him long enough for Krillin to toss a successful Destructo Disc that cuts their enemy in half. Huzzah! The Destructo Disc did what it was intended to do! Bulma takes the scouter from Kui to tinker with it, and they manage to reach one of the Dragon Balls before the Frieza soldiers do. They also advise the Namekians to evacuate to Guru's tower, where they will be safe. Meanwhile on Earth, Goku has gotten over his earlier malaise about his Saiyan nature and is getting ready for his departure. He launches the shuttle and starts his intensive gravity training, still pondering what to do about his Saiyanness and hoping that Gohan is safe. Gohan, on the other hand, finds a lot of peace in training with Nail, who reminds him a lot of Piccolo, but slightly kinder. No leaving in the wilderness or anything. And Nail, he seems to be surprised about the natural talent inside this non-Namekian. He also feels that if this evildoer is as powerful as everyone says he is, this child might be the only hope against him. As the Dragon team press on and forge their fight back against Frieza's soldiers, the attention focuses back to the tower of the Elder Guru. The atmosphere was quite different from normal when it's just Nail and Guru, as the Elder watches his attendant and the young Earthling training, as well as imaging it in his mind when they're outside. There is bizarrely in Guru a feeling of calm and safety that he hadn't felt in a while.
My people are in good hands. At last, I can live out my remaining days safe in the knowledge that we will live on.
He knows his time is drawing near though, but he has to endure one last time so that the Dragon Balls can be used against the intruders. After Porunga has done his thing, he can be in peace. As for the two more active guests of the tower, things are looking up despite the initial uncertainty. Gohan's training with Nail has gone pretty well. The young boy was able to utilize his initial training with Kami, but with the more patient Namekian this time around, as well as being more engaging physically, unlike Kami, he was finding a better outlet for his pent-up rage. The underlying stress of the situation was helping too, bizarrely. What Gohan was beginning to realize was that Going from 0 to 100 all the time back on Earth was the catalyst for his rage boosts. He didn't really have a default stress level. By perhaps maybe changing that to something more like going from 30 to 100 instead of 0 to 100, it doesn't remove the problem, sure, but it allows the Hybrid Saiyan to at least prepare to handle stress better, and even control these anger bursts, hopefully. But despite this moment of clarity, the reality is becoming apparent. The Frieza troops are becoming more and more relentless in their hunt for the Dragon Balls. You see, even though their power isn't all that special when compared to our guys, there is something missing from the formula which actually helped our chums out quite a bit, and that is Vegeta. Without Vegeta here, around to mow through these soldiers like an unkept lawn, the troops are in actually much better shape and morale than in the original story. They are actually doing stuff, able to keep it together, and their numbers are unwavering. Their bravery unquestioned, because no one's actually questioning them. Sure, they were pretty big powers, but for now, those guys, our Dragon Team, were far off in the distance and doing their own thing. Krillin and Yamcha were busy saving people instead of tackling these goons head-on, like the Prince did. Although our gang have one Dragon Ball, they really can't do anything without getting the full set, so a direct encounter is pretty inevitable. They won't be able to hide forever and be all noble with saving people. Soon enough, they are going to clash, and people are going to get hurt. The two Earthlings realize that after the latest batch of civilians have been now sent off into the mountains for safety, they have to tackle the problem. Krillin, buddy, we can't keep doing this. Soon enough, we need to start taking out the soldiers. I know, man, but until Bulma can reverse engineer that scouter or whatever, all we can do is minimize the damage. Yamcha and Krillin are now trying to pin their hopes in Bulma being able to hack Kui's scouter, so they could potentially be able to use that scouter for their own benefit. Maybe listen in on their enemies and pick off rogue offshoots bit by bit instead of tackling it all in one go. When they do get back to base, the engineer is indeed proud to unveil her work. Krillin tries the scouter on, presses a couple of buttons, and instantly they can hear the crosstalk between various battalions stationed across the planet. A smile forms on his face. Good! They've got the upper hand now without getting injured. Thanks to this, they can at least know the movements of the enemy troops. The messages continue to come in. The trio are now listening feverishly to gather as much intel now as possible before they next go out on their missions. They do find out the name of that galactic powerful emperor, Frieza, and they figured out that he was the one behind Vegeta showing up on Earth in the first place. Sure, they knew more stuff, but regardless of intel, they know that they can't fight Frieza in a simple battle. He may be only one guy, but he's far too powerful for any of them. Not even Nail could take him down, and he was league stronger than any of them right now. There is one idea though. It may be risky, it may seem a little foolish, but sometimes you just gotta come up with an underhanded plan to deal with underhanded people. And that is to try and steal the Dragon Balls from under these goons' noses. Bulma then points out the obvious.
I hate to break it to you guys, but you guys stand out like sore thumbs. How are you gonna get in undetected dressed like that?
Well, thanks to the hacked scouter, they managed to have an answer to this. One band of troops are heading back to base after finding an empty village and no Dragon Ball. From what the scouter can pick up as well as what they can sense, these guys aren't that strong, and so the pair managed to actually perform a successful jump on these two weak Frieza soldiers and managed to steal their armor. After they get over the fact that this armor is tough but also extremely comfortable and flexible to boot, Yamcha starts to get second thoughts. Do you think anyone's gonna suspect us, bud? I mean, you know, we're dressed like us, but we don't exactly look alien-y. I mean, it's a good point. Of course, up close, they would be recognized as not being from around here, since they just showed up, but at least the two of them are less obvious targets. They have at least a chance of blending in. Also, what works for them is that the troop numbers are so numerous, the odds of Frieza himself spotting them in the crowd and going, "Wait a moment, I don't recognize those generic troops!" Those are pretty slim. That being said, if there are any automatic control spots or identification stations on the ship, they're most certainly doomed. Back at base, Yamcha finally admits to the rest of the group that he's actually been holding something back from them. He smuggled Puar with them to Namek, revealing that his buddy didn't want his master to go alone. Puar is a little apprehensive that the gang would be angry with him for being so reckless, but they're not. Bulma's more irate about another matter.
Well, no wonder you were eating so much, Yamcha.
Yamcha fires back with saying that Bulma has been eating more too.
It's called stress eating, and what do you expect? I'm having to find solutions for your weakness, you dolt!
With the couple bickering amongst themselves, Poir reckons that he's in the clear. And then another reason for keeping him around arises and becomes very obvious. Guys! Look! He can pretend to be someone! The arguing stops. He's right. Poir's powers can indeed prove to be quite useful. He could impersonate Kui. Now the fun thing about this escapade is that they don't know Kui's name. They just know him as that purple alien guy who didn't like Vegeta a lot. Now, granted, if someone uses a scouter on him, they might discover that this guy's power level is lower than usual, but this plan's better than nothing, and will only increase their chances of pilfering the Dragon Balls instead of making them worse. The gang then head to Guru's tower to check in on Gohan's progress, and they fill the kid in about what they're about to do. Gohan's pretty worried about this plan, but Nail orders him to focus on training instead. You're not involved in this, Gohan, so just let them get on with it. If you break off your training now, it will only slow them down. Harsh words, but Gohan deep down knows that what Nail says is true. Now, in order to not get blasted by Frieza or his commanders for being no good dumbos, they need to bring something back to the Emperor to prove they've actually done something useful, to distract the fact that these guys look weird and get in their good books. Give less reason to be suspicious. With the help of some Dragon Clan Namekians, our heroes are able to forge a Dragon Ball. A Dargan Ball, no less, if you remember that little trope from another What If that I did. It's literally a spherical rock painted gold and with some red stars badly painted on it. It will do for the purposes of getting on the ship. Together with the disguised Yamcha and Krillin, the Quipoir will be the one to bring Lord Frieza his prize. With this Quipoir doing the business, it will look standard, and that is what they want. When they first get on the ship, they aren't bothered by anyone, but before they can meld into the rank and file of the soldiers and truly blend in, they get accosted by a pool.
Hey, Kui, where have you been? Dodoria's waiting for your report about your Earthling encounter. You don't want to keep the boss waiting.
The Quipoir is getting flustered. Poir didn't know what Kui sounded like, so he had to guess.
I've been busy chasing the Earthlings, and my scouter malfunctioned?
A pool looks quizzical.
Malfunctioned. Right, but it was worth it. I found one of the Dragon Balls right here.
He thrusts the Dargan Ball in a pool's face to further prove his point. This, fortunately, has the expected reaction.
Oh, Lord Frieza will be most pleased. Well, go right ahead and present yourself to him then. But wait a sec. What about those two? I don't remember you fraternizing with these guys. Who are they?
Quipoir is trying to save the situation.
And these are Chestnut and Master T. They helped me in securing this bowl after my initial helpers were sadly offed by the Earthlings. Those people are very slippery.
Apul acknowledges this and bows his head in sadness, and then simply tells him to move along and present the ball. And so they do just that, and quickly deliver the Dargan Ball to Frieza. The reaction is exactly what they expect. Frieza is pleased with Kui's success. Chestnut and T, though, are waiting outside, having been told that they're too low-ranking to even gaze at Frieza's glorious face in the flesh. The two are instead busy listening in on the scouter to the exchange between the Emperor and their shape-shifting buddy.
I never expected that you, of all people, would be the one to bring me such a prize, and with so little fuss. You've done well today, Kui. I think it's safe to say that you will be handsomely rewarded when we are done here. We are just one orb short from achieving our goal, and then I, Lord Frieza, will be able to achieve immortality. I feel we are very close, Kui.
Quipoir is trying to hide his loathing of saying the honorific.
As a matter of luck, I think I finally managed to locate the village that might contain the last one. I think I will go there personally, as a mark of personal celebration.
Poir internally gulps at that revelation, but he now knows the location of the already captured Dragon Balls. Our heroes need a new plan, stat. Quipua bows and leaves Frieza's quarters, while Krillin, equipped with the Dragon Radar, has to get to the village before Frieza does and take the Dragon Ball. He does have some time though, because Frieza is reveling in his success, sipping some wine in some sense of satisfaction, gorging on his own glory, and reveling in all the things he will do once he gets his everlasting life. As Krillin leaves and then Frieza does, eventually, Yamcha remains on board and gets an idea. Frieza took his right and left hand men Zarbon and Dodoria with him, so that means the people who are usually guarding the balls aren't, and who are now guarding the balls are Raspberry and Apul. These guys' powers were much lower than Zarbon and Dodoria's. Pui then transforms into Frieza, and he presents himself to the guards.
My lord, we didn't expect you to return so soon. Be quiet, you lumbering oafs. You'll question my efficacy. I've decided to come back and take the Dragon Balls here and make the wish as soon as possible. The air here stinks, and I want to be off this world by sundown.
The two are so stressed by their boss's presence that they totally ignore the fact that Frieza sounds a little off, is not using his usual hover chair, and he actually sounds more theatrical. But they're not going to question anyone who looks like Frieza. They daren't be that bold. So the balls are taken. Yamcha and Puar then leaving as fast as they can. Back at Guru's place, Nail and Bulma are shocked to discover that Guru is not feeling that well, which means that they don't have much time left. Luckily for them though, Krillin, Yamcha, Puar, and some of the Namekians from the last village are already heading there. Guru then warns them that after they summon Porunga, they will be attracting the attention on everyone on the planet. With the help of said Namekians, they decide to wish Piccolo back to Namek. At least thanks to that, the Earth Dragon Balls are back in action. For now though, they ask Porunga to remain low, as they may need one more wish later. Guru tasks Bulma with safeguarding the balls. Gohan is really happy to see Piccolo here, but this is no time for rejoicing, as the real Frieza has sent Zarbon and Dodoria to check what has caused the sky to darken. Nail, Piccolo and Gohan do thankfully make quick work of the duo, actually surprising themselves with how efficient they were. But Frieza has broken off his celebration at that Namekian village to head back to the ship to regroup, but he then discovers that his prize has been stolen, and his two top henchmen are not responding. The Emperor isn't happy. Meanwhile, Goku is on his way to Namek, still being distraught by his son's devastating potential. He didn't know what to think. I mean, sure, he was pleased to see his son be incredibly strong, and that Kami had managed to help make it more consistent than before, but he also had to remember that this power was not always on their side. And unless Gohan had actually pulled a full 180 and could easily control his power being calm and strong, nobody was safe, not even himself. This feeling of worry carried through into Goku's training. His training is even more dire than the original story, and less happy-go-lucky. He has to speed up his gravity training to dangerous levels, even for his stamina, as our hero has a lot to think about on his way. He reaches the 100 times gravity level much sooner, and even though he can handle it, his body is screaming out for relief from this sudden pressure and rapid increase. He even tests the waters with 150 times gravity, to where he manages to get to, with his body giving out much more visibly. Despite the pain though, the Zenkai from his Senzu Bean healing is quite potent, as we will touch upon later. Meanwhile, the hiding place of the Namek expedition is soon compromised. It is discovered by some Frieza scouts who have been informed by their bosses and their scouters that they need to actually be careful. They act very stealthily and get almost to the front door, but they are no match for our heroes. Even though they can fend off the scout party, there is the very stark reality that this base is no longer safe. They know that they have been discovered, and as such, they need to move and find a new place to call Sanctuary. With Gohan keeping watch, Bulma packs the capsule away, and they hastily run away from the cave, doing their best to hide their powers and flying low to the ground to avoid detection on the off chance of any flying minions about. Back at the Super Kami Tower, Guru tells Nail that his days are numbered, and that the Dragon Balls risk disappearing forever, or even their planet if things don't go in their favour soon. As he unlocks Piccolo's potential, he tasks the group with protecting the orbs until that powerful ally of theirs arrives, and they can further push back against the menace that is Frieza and his force. Piccolo is pretty shocked by the trust that the old Namekian has given him despite his more malevolent past.
I know that you feel that you are not worthy of this power, but I sense that you have learned from your father's mistakes. You have grown into a fine Namekian, my friend. Use this power well and make our people proud.
Piccolo feels a little touched by this, but tries to conceal it from the others. But he is actually starting to feel a genuine link between himself and his long-forgotten people. He agrees to this plea. Our heroes spend the next few days doing their best to hide from the Frieza soldiers, as the Emperor's patience wears thin. They manage to find a second location for their base, but they are still not taking any chances, and they are keeping their powers as low as possible for as long as possible. To their detriment though, the Ginyu Force have landed, and they manage to find our heroes again, despite their caution. The resulting skirmish is pretty intense, and does result in a lot of injury and strife, but our heroes manage to take down Goldo fairly quickly, despite the formidable might of the team. With the addition of Nail and a powered up Piccolo, they come in to fight Recoome and Jace respectively, with Berta being challenged by everyone else. Meanwhile, their leader Ginyu is watching from afar, having the utmost faith in his men, feeling no need to join in himself. They can get this done soon enough, and then he can report to Frieza and say that the deed was done, and that they can carry on with whatever they were doing. But the Earthlings and Namekians are slowly starting to win, much to the boss's astonishment. Ginyu then has to take matters into his own hands, of course, and helps out his crew, especially with Recoome in dispatching Nail, who although powerful himself cannot take both Ginyu and his chief brute at the same time. That's just far too much for the strongest Namekian to cope with. He gets wounded pretty badly, and as Ginyu and Recoome set their sights on Piccolo fighting off Jace, Goku lands in his space pod and, well, does what Goku does with Recoome in the original. And this does upset the balance of power in our hero's favour once again. Ginyu is absolutely beside himself with the dispatching of yet another member of his team, and one of his strongest too. Meanwhile, Piccolo manages to defeat Jace, causing even more anguish for Ginyu, and decides to check on Nail. Nail reveals to Piccolo the whole secret of Namekian fusion, and the two fuse, much to the remaining members of the Ginyu force's belief and shock. As now, the power levels of both Goku and Piccolo are completely off the scale. Remember, Piccolo had a potential unlock on top of this. Berta also falls to the damage inflicted by Goku and Piccolo, with now the lone Ginyu having to take on both opponents. He even tries to change bodies with Goku, but not even this works. We have a cat now thoroughly out of the bag. Puar transforms into Goku and gets in between them. He thinks that he has become Goku, and for a second, revels in his achievement. But once Ginyu opens his eyes, he sees Goku nearby. That's weird, he thinks. Ginyu hadn't expected that. Now he is a cat, because he can't keep up the transformation because he doesn't know how. Puar Ginyu quickly grabs him by the tail that used to be his own and tosses him around, like he was Thor tossing Mjolnir. Whoa, is that you, little buddy? Stammers a very confused Yamcha. Yeah, look Yamcha, now I can transform and change bodies. Pretty cool, eh? This is Puar with Ginyu's voice, but it's still a very joyous moment for the cat. Not only has he helped in terms of aiding Goku, but he now also has a body which can keep up with the Dragon teams in terms of over-and-out strength, and even outmatch Yamcha. But that scene gets interrupted when Puar Ginyu then gets blasted by a lone death beam. As entertaining as that was, I am quite saddened by the loss of my beloved force. I require catharsis of the highest regard. Goku decides to challenge the Tyrant first, asking Piccolo to protect the rest of the heroes as they embark on a hasty retreat. Luckily, they have Dende with them, who attempts to fix Puar while Goku decides to dance with Frieza's first form. But, as much as he's able to keep up with first form Frieza, the second form starts to become a bit of a challenge. Frieza manages to beat up Goku pretty badly, but before he is able to finish him, Piccolo attacks the Tyrant, being much stronger than he had anticipated. To Piccolo, this is quite the thrill. That, and he was stronger than Goku. That was quite nice too. The rest have to do some quick thinking. Gohan, who had mostly been on the sidelines for all of this, is now coming back into the fore. He is now on the verge of going berserk, but his lessons are showing some kind of promise. He is exhibiting signs of being able to hold back this power instead of letting it wash over him right from the start without pause. Dende reveals that he can only stabilize Puar and Goku at the moment, but in order to heal them fully, he would need more time. Yamcha recalls that there was some healing pods on Frieza's ship, and since Frieza is here, the biggest threat there is out of the picture. Our heroes make a run for the vessel, fighting off the remaining troops there and put Goku and Puar in the capsules, thanks to Bulma's quick thinking. Now the fight between Piccolo and Frieza seems to be pretty interesting, as the Tyrant is even enjoying it a little bit. He goes into his third form, But since Piccolo's potential was unlocked as well as fusing, he is actually able to at least keep Frieza's third form at bay, occupied with a very captivating battle. This is very much taking up Frieza's attention, and since he has one more form in reserve, he isn't getting angry. He does get bored of toying with the Namekian and goes into his fourth and final form. You gave me some entertainment, Namekian, and for that, I will only hurt you badly instead of killing you. I will allow you to watch me attain my immortality and begin my conquest of the galaxy. He beats up Piccolo to within an inch of his life and takes him back to the ship, well aware that the Z-Fighters went there to heal their allies. He didn't mind this though. It was good that more people could witness him achieve eternal life. When he finds them there, he tosses the injured Piccolo at their feet. Now, my Dragon Balls, please, or I will have no choice but to blow your friends in the pods up. Our heroes are in no position to bargain, and they hand over the Dragon Balls, hoping that they can distract Frieza for somehow, just some way, to give their friends more time to heal. That Goku will regain health. This can't be the end, surely. Frieza is handed a bag which were meant to be holding Dragon Balls, only to discover that they have turned into stone. I fail to see the point of this joke. What kind of trick is this? Explain. Piccolo laughs, spitting out some blood.
All that carnage you caused put the planet's elder in so much distress that his poor heart couldn't hold on any longer. And without him around, the balls are inert. You lose, Frieza.
Keen to shut the slug up, Frieza is about to crush Piccolo, but after an angry shout, he regains his composure and calmly blasts the pod containing Goku into pieces. Somehow, the Saiyan himself survives this, but his wounds get even more severe. Now Frieza is ready to blast everyone else, but something is happening to Gohan. Perhaps this was all too much for him to bear. What's with that child? Was it your daddy that I blasted to bits then? Oh, good. But Gohan's eyes are pure white, and the only thing he sees now is red. He charges on Frieza, who isn't prepared for the power of the charge, as the charge blasts him through the wall. He's not nearly powerful enough to really hurt Frieza, but he is pretty fast and strong enough to move him. Meanwhile, Dende concentrates all his power on healing Piccolo and Goku. He has to give all his life energy to at least put them into a state that allows walking. Dende sacrifices his life so that they could live. Frieza, meanwhile, seems like he is attacked by an annoying bird that he can't fend off. Finally, he manages to grab Gohan by the head and yanks him on the ground with an amazing strength. Seeing that makes Goku roar in primal anger. Something has changed. After healing Piccolo and Goku, Dende had to give all of his life force in order to get them into a somewhat fighting shape. They wouldn't be able to go all out though, but they could at least not be considered liabilities, walking wounded. Right now though, everyone was looking in shock as well as awe at Goku. Despite having sustained considerable injury, he's presently giving Frieza a serious beatdown, and he's actually in a pretty furious state himself. Piccolo was musing that this was probably the origins of the little one's power. He definitely was his father's son now, but it's also important to note here that Goku's anger boost here is unlike Gohan's. It's evolving, seemingly. His eyes were whiting out, but wait, his hair's changed, it's spiked up. That's a new one. And not only that, but the Saiyan was now, instead of holding it together, starting to turn the tide away from Frieza, who takes some time to regain equal footing in that situation. Piccolo was also sensing Goku's energy. It was changing, becoming more raw, animalistic by the second. Something's happening to him and he's not sure whether he likes it. Now, despite not being able to sense energy himself, Frieza was starting to get the message, feeling like he was no longer the one in control of his present situation. Frieza then, of course in that way, threatens to blow up the planet in a rather grandiose fashion. Normally, this would get a bigger reaction from our Dragon team, but nobody here is in the mood to indulge him. So, he just goes ahead and does it, without any flair. That does make him sad. And he damages the core greatly, but the rock is still there, as he usually winds up doing in these scenarios. Having no clue that the planet is going to ultimately blow up, Yamcha, Krillin, Bulma and Puar Ginyu are tasked in trying to give Gohan some further medical attention. The ship might be damaged, but can it still fly? Can they get out of the potential blast zone in time? Away from this mess, the now strongest Namekian goes through his options. He wants to stay and help, feeling like he can still contribute and help Goku. But before he can make a solid decision of his own, he then receives a telepathic message from Kami, all the way from Earth. I know that you want to play the hero, Piccolo, But this is no time for grandstanding. I also understand that you got interrupted with your wishes by Frieza. So I managed to gather our Dragon Balls if you needed them. Piccolo smiled. You're right. We were interrupted during the wishes. So instead of lording it over me, if you can revive every victim of Frieza and his men right now, I'd like that. I'll be able to wish Guru back and transfer everyone safely to Earth. This may come as a shock to you, Kami, but we gotta work together for this one. Kami is quite surprised to hear this coming from Piccolo of all people.
My, you've come a long way, my friend. Don't get any ideas. Just stick to the plan.
And as they end the conversation, this is precisely what happens. The plan, not the musing. As the Dragon Balls start to glow again and Guru is revived for a little longer, Frieza tries to charge towards them, disregarding the ever-present Goku. His hopes of immortality had now been restored with the dragon back, and Frieza was possessed. You thought you can cheat, but he then gets interrupted by a punch to his lower body. Thanks to the contributions of No, Piccolo now knows the Namekian language completely, and so he can summon Porunga and enact the wish before Frieza can get anywhere near them. Dende and the other fallen Namekians are now returned to life, quite shocked by what they're seeing, and the fact that their planet was on the brink of death, that too. But before Frieza can do anything else, he sees people starting to then disappear before his very eyes, just popping out of the ether. All his enemies were vanishing out of sight, save for Goku and Piccolo. Everyone else, they were gone. Goku was not happy to see that Piccolo was still here though. You should have left with them, Piccolo! If you die here, we'll lose our Dragon Balls! Goku's snarling at him after that.
I know! So let's take him down together and make sure that doesn't happen!
Goku's annoyance broke. He actually did like the sound of Piccolo being confident. Right, let's do it! And with the help and oversight of Piccolo, Goku is able to destroy Frieza with his new powers. The Tyrant doesn't get even the slightest chance of getting up to his full power. Again, that's thanks to Piccolo keeping a check on Goku's Saiyan impulses. But there is still the matter of Namek to deal with. The planet is still on the path to exploding, and the pair now have to escape it somehow. Frieza wasn't there anymore to get in their way, but his actions were. They keep the Dragon Balls safe for the moment as they still have one wish left on them, an attempt to use the ship that is now left unoccupied. A large part of the ship is depressurized, but that doesn't matter right now. They managed to leave the planet with moments to spare. They also witnessed 3 capsules leaving the planet at the same time as them. It seems like there were other people that survived, possibly some members of the Ginyu Force. But they didn't care right now. They had the issue of watching the planet explode, and then nothing. And then, what were they going to do? Both Goku and Piccolo drift aimlessly through space for some time, with both of them trying to understand the Super Saiyan transformation that had come over Goku. As their knowledge about it, it's pretty limited as you might be able to understand. And what about the Dragon Balls of Namek? What do they do with them? Should they use the last remaining wish right now to get themselves home? Should they keep the wish as a last resort? Is Gohan capable of learning and using effectively Super Saiyan as well? Could this be the ticket to grasping his rage through a more constructive power? Goku felt that when he was in that form, he could then better tailor it so it might help Gohan. Or, at the same time, Super Saiyan could be the catalyst that dooms everyone. It might make Gohan worse. Again, they had no idea. Their thoughts, though, are interrupted by them arriving at a mysterious planet. Fortunately for them, the people that live on said planet are friendly. They get rescued by the locals, known as Yardratians, who offer them a place to stay, and then, when they're able to, some training. Goku and Piccolo decide to make use of this rare opportunity, especially since the Elder Pibara revealed to them that they can be taught many exciting and intriguing techniques, such as instant transmission. That was just the start of it. Wow, that sounds cool, thought Goku. But then a thought dawns on the Saiyan. They now know what to wish for in the Porunga. They use the wish to transport Gohan to them instead of them going home. Gohan is happy to see his father and Mr. Piccolo alive and well, but is also confused as to why he was brought here. And then mulls over how horrified his mother must have been just seeing him just vanish. It then becomes clear, though, that the Yardratians may have a special kind of training that can help Gohan as well. Finally put to bed Gohan's terrors and give him peace of mind fully for the first time in his life. You can imagine how happy Chi-Chi was back on Earth when her son that was pretty hurt not so long ago disappeared. Piccolo managed to use his telepathic bond with Kami to explain the situation to her, as well as the fact that Goku might have found a way to help Gohan contain his anger. This was something that would prove ultimately beneficial for all of them. The mother of Gohan tries to protest this still, but Kami interjects. My dear, this could be the final piece of the puzzle. I was only able to do so much, but this training could prove vital. The Ardratians are famous for their ways of the mind. They don't believe in strength alone in making someone great. Sometimes the simplest of skills is enough to prevail. Chi-Chi is sad and reluctant, but she learnt to trust Kami's and Piccolo's judgment with Gohan. The former had made Gohan's life at least a little bit easier. During their time there, Piccolo quickly learns instant transmission, which allows him to transport Chi-Chi to Yardrat for further proof that their plan was safe and sound, as well as to try and just calm her nerves. Now she can be near her son and watch him train nearby. He also brings Krillin, Tenshinhan, Yamcha and Chaozu for a ride and important training. Pibara is happy for the extra company and can tell the people coming were of good mind and soul. It was so nice to have visitors since the Yardratians were bound by their own edict to never leave the planet. However, all these guests arrived one at a time. It was gradual. To not leave Earth completely, obviously, defenseless, and also trying not to overwhelm the local population. Baby steps and all that. Then to everyone's surprise, Chi-Chi also wanted to get in on the training, and Gohan was thrilled to hear this, but equally perplexed as to why. Chi-Chi nods and explains, Maybe if I take part, it'll allow me to understand your father better. She's pretty stubborn though as a candidate of training, and although it takes her a pretty long time to get to grips with it, Chi-Chi is at least able to use instant transmission. However, after experiencing all of this, she decides to limit herself to only doing that, and maybe Pibara expanding her potential. That was enough for her. She simply wanted to gain some perspective, not to get strong. Needless to say, like the original, Goku gets bored of the training quite quickly. It wasn't exactly the most stimulating of tasks, and they had managed to master it quite easily in comparison to other examples of training from the past. Piccolo and Tenshinhan were the beings who got the best gains from all of this training, the Triclops benefiting from all of the training being more of the same stuff that he'd been doing before, and thusly, his fortitude being the best to cope with it. He felt like he had really come a long way here on Yardrat, and that he could finally realize his dream to surpass Goku, or at least keep up with Goku for the first time in years of being on the sidelines. Now you're probably wondering about Gohan. How is he handling all of this? Well, a lot of the training for him was really focused on trying to contain his anger instead of getting stronger. That was the biggest challenge to overcome for all concerned. So, while he is very quick and skilled at the theory part of the training, as for the physical part, that takes longer to grasp. His patience being relatively thin, not only because of his condition, but also for the fact he's 6. So Gohan's going to have to remain on Yardrat for a little while longer, but Chi-Chi's okay with this since she now knows who he is staying with. She liked Pibara, who was very on the level and calm. With them getting what they can out of this training, our heroes return to Earth, now with them able to use instant transmission amongst other skills, then visiting Gohan now and again, that being no problem. And one of the other beneficiaries from all of this is of course Puar, who also managed us to learn something quite major and relevant to him. Thanks to the Ardratians, he is able to prolong his shape-changing abilities. Thanks to their mind exercises, he can now transfigure himself into anything for as long as he would want to. No time limits. This means he can simply revert to his cat form, but still retain Ginyu's techniques. It's just a shame though that he only knows body change, but hey, that might come handy someday, right? But the real challenge comes later, when our heroes discover that Frieza hadn't died on Namek. In fact, he had been rebuilt by his own father, King Cold, as Mecha Frieza. Ginyu is also back in a new body, alongside Berta and Jace, who managed to survive Namek's destruction. They were right, they had escaped. Some of the Ginyu force had lived to fight another day. But if you think this was going to be a big problem, then fear not. Cold and his army got dominated pretty drastically. The new Yardratian powers our heroes got have now allowed them to completely and utterly decimate the army. In fact, they were now so buffed up, they started to wonder what all the fuss was about with this army. And without Vegeta here, the only ones dying now are Frieza and Cold, who tries to trick them with bargains as per usual, but ultimately gets blasted by Goku. No deal. The remaining soldiers, led by Ginyu, escape Earth, vowing some sort of revenge, but they actually don't have a clue as to how to enact it. They just want to get out of there. Gohan then gets informed about this when Krillin is tasked to drop in and tell him the news, which calms Gohan down greatly. In fact, he's elated. He managed to contain his anger, the evil was defeated, the Namekians have got a new home, and they all gained a lot of strength, and new Yardratian friends. So, happy ending, right? Well, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I swore that this is the part of the story where there's supposed to be a future warrior with some kind of important message to arrive and tell the group about something, an upcoming event. You know, and Goku's heart being a Oh. Vegeta's dead. Well, as you might be able to tell, since there is no future boy coming to warn the group about the androids, the group are completely unaware of it. They are considering their recent and final win against Frieza as something of an immediate end to perils for the moment, for them as a whole. Because of this blissful ignorance, this means our heroes can take it easy somewhat in relation to the original timeline. Subsequently, 3 years then passed since our heroes had triumphed over Mecha Frieza and King Cold. The Z-Fighters have naturally grown accustomed to the peaceful times of now, taking regular trips to Yardrat for more casual times to check with Master Pibara, maybe for a top-up session with him as well. But this is more for ticking over purposes rather than going all out and in desperate search for new techniques and power gains at a really quick click. It had also been a very long time since Gohan's last major rage attack, him being able to keep a good hold on his emotions and thusly starting to understand them more. So, this meant that everyone could genuinely relax a little bit around his company from an impending anger burst from Goku's kid. They had good reason to be buoyant right now. After all, they had stopped a major space threat, one of the biggest in the galaxy, that had been causing pain and suffering for billions for decades. Surely there couldn't be anything greater than that could threaten them right now. Yeah? Yes, of course, Goku hadn't given up on his training, since it was something he liked to do on a regular basis for fun, whether there was an enemy about or not. It was also helped by the fact that Chi-Chi had allowed him to have some rather healthy doses of exercise with his son, since it helped them both let off some steam and get some fresh air. In fact, sometimes she even participated in this herself. This meant some really good time for the Son family to bond with one another and understand one another, instead of Chi-Chi just foisting her beliefs on a Gohan who could probably do with less ramming of books down his throat. Other parties were benefiting from their time on Yardrat as well. Thanks to this training, Tenshinhan could finally build his spiritual dojo, the one that he had always wanted to make. Something that was unique to him, a blend of Yardrat and the Crane School, used for positive affirmations rather than underhanded power plays like the disgraced Shen had been spouting for decades. Thanks to this variation of a theme, he was blessed to pass some of the techniques to Earthlings from Master Pibara, though it would take some time to find some rather fitting students from the nearby towns. The Dragon team had advanced so far from a regular fighter or humans that it would be extremely difficult to find candidates who could even light a candle near them, let alone hold one. But Tenshinhan didn't mind the challenge of finding them. It would make it all the more satisfying when he had. But one day, things started to seem less fine. At Kame House, Krillin was idly watching television, flicking through the channels for something to watch after a busy day of firing Kamehamehas into the ocean over and over, when he spotted something bad happening in North City. This concerning him. There had been electrical outages all stemming from a specific source which didn't seem to add up, since the reporter noted that there were no nearby pylons located near the surge point. Something was up. He decided to let the others know. This was just the start of it all. Goku had been feeling a little off lately as well, but he really didn't have a clue as to why he was feeling under the weather. He guessed as best he could that maybe this had something to do with Saiyan aging that he had heard about. Maybe he was getting older and Saiyans aged quicker than humans, but no, that didn't make any sense for them to age that fast when Goku was only in his late 20s. And besides, Nappa looked much older than him when they last fought, able to give him a lot of grief. He must have been about, like late 40s, early 50s? No, it had to be something else. Maybe, okay, it was just an ordinary flu that had finally gotten around to infecting him. Yeah, that must be it. But just then, a phone call from Krillin arrived, which put Goku into alert mode and putting his cold firmly at the back of his mind. After the friends met and they found Piccolo, They also took Tenshinhan to investigate the disturbances, since Yamcha was busy sharing his time between his family and his baseball career. They didn't wish to interrupt, but their suspicions were correct. This was no regular outage or utility issue. Much to their dread, our heroes had noticed smoke towering over North City, which made them feel uneasy. It looked like there had been a major attack, but they hadn't sensed anything beforehand to alert them about this.
Looks like some bad guy tried to cause some trouble, huh? It's been a while, muttered Krillin.
After a moment, they saw the source of this entire ruckus. There were two of them, who had been just casually standing around in the middle of a road, firing bursts of light from their hands. It looked like an old man and a clown. How could these two be the source of all this calamity? And again, how did they not sense their presence before getting visual on them? When their eyes met, the geezers seemed amused.
Well, Son Goku, this was unexpected. After so many years searching for you, you've made the effort to just turn up at my feet. I am pleasantly surprised that I won't be needing to perform any more wild goose chases. You saved me the bother, and I don't like being bothered.
Goku tilted his head, completely clueless as to the identity of this attacker, despite him wearing the attire of the organization that he had definitely run into ages ago. Do I know you? I noticed your clothing, and I'm pretty sure I defeated most of those Red Ribbon Army guys. Did I miss some of them then? The man glared at the Saiyan.
Not everyone, but I knew them. One especially.
He closed his eyes with a somber slowness before resuming his death stare.
My name is Dr. Giro, and this is Android 19, and we will make you pay for what you did. 19, get him.
The others were pretty sure that Goku had this under control. After all, it wasn't exuding power that was troubling them, but it wasn't exuding any power. After some fighting that had gone down, this thing was scarily powerful for something that was created on Earth without them knowing. But at the end of the day, Goku was not from Earth, and he still had Super Saiyan, so he'd be fine. Yeah. Sure enough, from our hero's perspective, it was starting to look promising for them, especially when the warrior decided to skip the initial phase of the fight and trying to source things and, understand his opponent. But then something caught Piccolo's eye, something that was worrying him greatly, before he then alerted the others to it. Is Goku breathing more heavily than usual? He can't be that tired already. He hadn't even launched any big ki attacks. Then it became very clear to all of them that the android was getting pretty heavy hits on Goku. The tide was turning, and the Saiyan was now on the back foot. For now, Piccolo, Krillin, and Tenshinhan chose to merely observe the Doctor in case he tried anything funny, who was then boasting about following their fights with his army of bug drones that he had been waiting in the shadows for so long, studying their abilities and ventures in order to ascertain the most effective way of ending them. He was starting to see that all of his research and experiments were providing compelling results, but he had no idea that there was another more biological factor that was indirectly helping him. Goku at this point had had enough of this encounter and decided to end the android with an angry Kamehameha. To his surprise, the android simply absorbed it, having stretched his arms out to literally catch it and then suck it up into his hands like a vacuum cleaner. And after that, the fight got even worse for Goku. The android was beginning to really lay down the law on Goku. He hadn't simply negated that attack. He was now using the power of that Kamehameha against the person who had made it. Krillin had to throw Goku a senzu. There was no other option. But when Goku took it and had ingested it, it had no effect. Usually that stuff works in an instant, but it was proving to be an absolute dud this time around, when they needed it most. As the android was beating Goku even further into the dirt, the three fighters had to intervene. They couldn't do any more the tried and tested act of standing around and doing nothing any longer. Jiro was doing that for them. Him enjoying this revenge and the fact that it was working so well for him with minimal effort. Krillin was then able to grab Goku from 19's clutches and use instant transmission to get into Bulma right away. Now at this point, Jiro could have stopped him from doing that, but the Doctor could then identify that Goku was heading toward the brink of death anyway. He had gotten his fill of vengeance for the moment, and hey, at this rate, Goku would succumb to his injuries in mere minutes, he thought. Jiro? Heart virus? That ain't your W. Meanwhile, this meant that Tenshinhan and Piccolo were the ones left to deal with the superpowered 19. They knew they had to keep this thing at a distance from them. Tenshinhan then used the multiform technique, hoping it could confuse the android into submission, but the sensors on board him could still fill out the Triclops, thusly rendering the technique useless. Piccolo knew what he had to do. In order to defeat 19, they had to remove his arms so it couldn't grab onto any more energy. But the problem was that he was able to take most of their attacks. And while they weren't exactly losing, they weren't winning either. All they were doing was delaying the inevitable truth that they would tire out, reaching their limit, and it wouldn't. Piccolo then called telepathically for Krillin, who returned to the fight, leaving Goku to be examined by Bulma and her father. In the meantime, Piccolo and Tenshinhan lured the android with some ki blasts, allowing Krillin to make a sneak attack and cast a Kienzan that cut off 19's hands. It had worked! Jiro was actually surprised by this. He had anticipated some level of defiance from Son Goku, but these three were proving to be abnormally stronger than they should have been based on his information and calculations. But of course, he had no idea of the majority of the Ardratian training, Jiro and 19. So at least our heroes had some kind of advantage going for them right now. After that, the three of them then started to go down on 19, stop it, with their strongest attacks. Then, chip by chip, these attacks blew the monster into pieces. This wasn't an easy fight though. It had taken everything they had got to beat just one of them, and Goku was in no state to rejoin them to help. They had no idea what was wrong with him either. Jiro then decided to fall back, though he was sure that he was able to take those fools down soon, if he had to, especially without Goku there to save them. Piccolo and Tenshinhan took up the chase, after Krillin giving them a sensu. This had worked for them and he, but not for Goku. That was weird. Was it some sort of Saiyan thing? That it was rejecting the beans now? After some tests had been performed, Bulma had found out that the cause of Goku's lack of recovery was down to some sort of virus that had never been seen before on Earth. She scolded the Saiyan for not saying anything about this sooner, but he was hardly in the mood to argue right now. He was burning up. Naturally, someone had to tell Chi-Chi about this. But luckily not all was lost, as Bulma helped Krillin with locating Jiro's lab, giving the others a bone to head toward. As they got closer to Jiro, Piccolo was able to shoot off one of the doctor's arms with a special beam cannon. And since he wasn't powered up by Goku's energy, this felt far less risky. But the mad scientist did manage to successfully evade them and retreat to his lair. When they got there though, he was talking to some teenagers. Our heroes were confused right now, but they quickly realized that they were another pair of androids. They witnessed Jiro trying to boss them around, but they quickly stole some kind of remote from him and then killed him. Piccolo approached, thinking he could talk them down.
We've no ill will toward you. We don't need to get in each other's way,
said Piccolo. Sorry, green guy. We're planning to have some fun, 17 smirked. And then the two androids quickly charged at them. Our heroes understood that these three, after 16 had been woken up, were much more terrifying and scary than 19 or Jiro combined. They were on a whole other level of power, as our heroes were merely toys for them. Piccolo tried everything, but Android 17 simply grew bored of him, blasting the Mechian away, practically leaving him at death's door. Oh look, sister, the big green ones perished. Barely alive, Krillin and Tenshinhan managed to get out of there by the skin of their teeth. Meanwhile, Chi-Chi got a phone call from Bulma, learning about Goku's condition. Just about now, Gohan felt something. Not only was his dad sick, but Mr. Piccolo. Before Chi-Chi knew it, Gohan was gone, having used instant transmission to get to the faint energy source of one of his mentors. He watched in horror as some punk was kicking Piccolo's corpse. Gohan roared in fury that surprised everyone around him. What's with the kid? 18 raised her eyebrow. The energy exploded from the little half Saiyan as he started to change, his hair glowing gold. Gohan? Super Saiyan? Well, look, sister. He can change. Gohan charged at 17, furiously attacking him, punching, kicking, throwing ki blasts at a horrific rate. Chi-Chi frantically popped in to witness this and screamed at Gohan, but he wasn't reacting to any of this. He was unloading all of his fury, all of his emotions onto the android, and it did absolutely nothing. 17 smiled. Not bad, little guy. My turn. Chi-Chi watched in horror as Android 17 beat her baby to a pulp. When he was thrown down, barely conscious to the ground, 17 was readying a massive ki blast, but Chi-Chi got in the way. 18 eyed the woman. Enough. We need to leave some playthings for later, brother. You blasted delinquents! You'll pay for what you did to my son! 17 grinned. No, lady. We're gonna have some fun. Also, do me a favor. We don't want to regret sparing you losers today. We've got bigger fish to fry anyway. Namely Goku. Chi-Chi was furious and helpless as those delinquents just left. She got to Krillin, bleeding out on the floor, and took a sensu. Goku's not in a shape to fight. Piccolo's gone. What are we gonna do now? The only thing that provided a reprieve right now for our heroes was that 18 was showing some semblance of mercy when Chi-Chi arrived to protect Gohan. With no Dragon Balls either. That's ballsy. As you can probably tell right now, peril is quite the weak word when trying to describe what is going on in this timeline. Although Piccolo was the one to perish, the androids didn't want to get rid of all of their playthings at once, leaving Krillin and Ten Shinhan alive. They survived. Chi-Chi had managed to get to Krillin, and they picked up Gohan too. The little guy got up and shook his head, processing what had just happened. Him also not in the mood to find the blonde one cute in this timeline. It wasn't exactly the right setting or place to do so. Should we go back and protect Goku? He is possibly in danger. What they said could be a trick. They could be on their way there right now. Krillin was still feeling a bit woozy from his encounter though. But after realizing that these two punks were more apathetic than led to believe, Chi-Chi did calm down a little bit. Despite that though, they had no easy fix for Goku's plight. She looked utterly broken and defeated. No, we can't help. There's nothing left we can do. If the Sensu can't do anything, then we'd only be risking Gohan. We have to hide him. If they kill Goku, they'll go after him next. Krillin, Ten Shinhan, please go to Balmer and Yamcha's. We need to figure out our next move. They're our only hope. The two men nodded, whilst Chi-Chi used instant transmission in order to get to the lookout and Mr. Popo, who was himself lamenting over the loss of Kami. It had been a harrowing experience. With Piccolo being toyed with, Kami was being flung about the lookout in agony, quite badly so, slowly being whittled down. It wasn't quick and painless to say the least. Chi-Chi arrived, and the genie had to use every fibre of his being to stop crying. I know. It's bad, Mr. Popo. Even the Yardratian training was not enough to do anything. But do you think we could find Namek? We need their Dragon Balls to fix this mess and try again. The genie looked down at his feet, also feeling quite despondent right now.
That would require sensing the energy of someone who is currently on the planet. Goku could do it. If he were healthy, that is.
Chi-Chi looked away. She bit her upper lip. That last salvo, why she came here, was a bust. Granted, they could sense energy to a degree, with them having learnt instant transmission as well, and of course their prior training, but not to the same degree or level as her husband. She turned away from the mage. They're coming for him, and we have no way of healing him. What do we do? Meanwhile, Krillin had managed to use his stealth mode to great effect and had made it to Capsule Corp with the dire news of what had gone down. Piccolo was gone. The Dragon Balls were gone. And Gohan was almost gone, him barely surviving a beating from the new set of androids. Puar, though, had loads of gusto. He was readying himself to challenge the new threat, but Krillin quelled his cat friend's enthusiasm. I appreciate the help, pal, but I don't think that'll be enough. Also, I'm not sure if you can body change with a robot. Are they robots? Are they human? Well, I don't know. It's too risky, though. Well, then what are we gonna do? Piped up Yamcha. If we can't use Puar's thing, then how can we get the leg up over them? Yamcha was really getting uneasy here. What? Are we supposed to just watch our friends getting wasted one by one? That's not how we do things, Krillin! Krillin waved his hands in the air to try and settle the bandit down. He didn't want to give off the impression that all was lost. There had to be a way to stop them. There always was a way. Okay, first of all, we need a safe haven. We need to evacuate everybody that's still alive to Yardrat. We gotta regroup. The androids surely have no way of getting there, so we should be safe. Bulma tried to add some level-headedness to the group. What they were suggesting felt just wrong for some reason. This almost feels like we're simply escaping, leaving Earth to its doom. Krillin had to justify his stance. Look, Bulma, if they wanted to right now, they could wipe us out without a second thought. By bouncing just temporarily, we can at least try to prepare something without having to worry about being set upon. Bulma nodded and sat down again. Wait, what about Goku? Yamcha wasn't done. What do we do with him? We can't heal him. Bulma and I were trying to develop some kind of a medicine to help, but it could take years to come up with enough to try and treat him. Really? We'll be lucky if we make it through the night. Krillin looked at Yamcha, not liking the sound of his own words. Well, they're fixated on him, so... Yamcha was simply stunned by this. He could not believe what he was hearing. Are you telling me that our friend is being left to die after all he's done for us as some kind of bait? A piece of meat for some androids to feast on? Are you serious? Yamcha, I hate the thought of this as much as you do. But right now, we cannot do a thing for him. The clock's ticking, buddy. We have to go as soon as we can. Yamcha didn't want to know, though. He was done listening to this farcical idea. Some friends you are. I'm gonna go get Goku. No, Yamcha, stop! But the bandit had already used instant transmission and he was gone, much to everyone's shock and surprise. Bulma simply broke down in tears. He was going to leave himself wide open, with no backup. He was a goner, surely. Sure enough, seconds later, Yamcha appeared right outside Goku's place. His friend's energy signature was weakening, but still strong enough to provide some kind of adequate beacon for him. When he went inside, though, and looked upon the Saiyan, he was in a rough state. He knelt down and shoved Goku awake. Goku! We have to go! I'll get you out of here! Goku turned his head toward his friend with eyes barely open. Yamcha? The Saiyan could barely speak. What's going on? Yamcha was relieved that he was still cognizant. You don't have to do a thing. I'll carry you. Just give me 1 second. Yamcha, you have to... Ah! The bandit turned around just when a ki blast had decided that it wanted to level Goku's house right then, with them both in it. But it didn't kill them. Nevertheless, though, the androids had made their entrance, having gotten fed up with mindlessly wandering around, and Yamcha now had to find his friend's weakening body inside a bunch of rubble. Great. Outside, 17 could be heard sounding rather crestfallen. Well, that was disappointing. I expected him to go all golden like the kid. Do we do it? Is the guy dead? 18 shrugged. I don't know. We can't sense energy, dummy. We're gonna have to go all analog to make sure. Ugh, my hands are gonna get all dirty when... But then Yamcha burst out from the wreckage and lambasted the pair. He looked disgusted. Is this some sort of a game to you? 18 smiled. Guess they didn't have to go rooting through all that rubble after all. Hardly. But I see that you are another one of those worthless friends. Since you're standing in our way. And they attacked. They were fast and merciless. Although Yamcha had done his Yadratian training, and that could back him up in a way, it was still not enough to cut it. He wasn't going to be making any meaningful inroads on the droids. After all, they were programmed and designed to kill. But instead, they decided to toy with him. That was his only saving grace right now. But if he could find a way to find an opening in their advances, maybe he could do enough to try and buy some time to get Goku and bail. At the last moment, when they were about to finish the job, Yamcha running out of options, someone stood in front of them. It was Goku, whom had mustered the last of his strength in order to stand up and stare down 17 and 18. Even they could tell that he was in no condition to fight. It's me you want. 17 sighed. Yeah, man, this is a real letdown. We really hoped for a challenge. Watching you struggling to even breathe, let alone beat us up? Sad, man. Suddenly, another person joined the party. Krillin popped up, him also with instant transmission. Krillin, take Yamcha to safety. Goku, what are you doing? Goku charged up all the energy he had left remaining in his body and gave a pathetic attempt at some kind of defense. But the androids overpowered him with barely any effort. Just do it, Krillin! Ugh. And with that, hating himself whilst doing so, Krillin took Yamcha back to Capsule Corp. So right then and there, Goku met his end at the hands of the androids. But at least he went down fighting this time, rather than in his bed at the mercy of some pathetic pathogen. But Chi-Chi felt that. She didn't need powers to feel that. She just did. She was too lost, though, to bring forth tears. Instead, all she had left was fury. She shook her fists. She knew it would end like this, but she had hoped for different. A lot of emotions were coming to bear right now. Was Krillin right? Should they just run? Run for their lives? Take Gohan and bolt somewhere into space? Make a peaceful existence somewhere else? Would the Namekians even take them in? Wait. No. Even with the odds stacked against them like this, that still didn't seem right. Goku wouldn't. Goku wouldn't just run when things looked bleak. Her thoughts were interrupted though by the rest of the team appearing up on the lookout. They weren't there for a social call though to check in on her. They had been busy gathering friends and allies in order to evacuate. With their instant transmission, they at least didn't need to worry about transportation or accidentally bumping into the androids, but that was not much of a bonus right now. They were going against their own beliefs and moral compass. But what other option did they have?
It's decided. We go to Yardrat, and then...
Tenshinhan looked at Chi-Chi, seeing her face wet from tears, only now breaking down when seeing everybody before her as potential refugees.
And then I'll use my meditation to try and find New Namek from there. It may take me some time, but I think I can do it.
Chi-Chi just shook her head, not wanting to know or hear any more. Bulma gave her a hug and allowed her to cry into her shoulder, and just like that, they vanished. Earth had been abandoned, leaving the rest of humanity to the hands of the androids. For now. Thankfully, the Yardratians took them in, feeling rather bad for them for everything that had happened on Earth. Even though the accommodation they had provided was good and the life there calm, it just wasn't Earth. It wasn't really their home. This was just some kind of stopgap measure to provide a quiet place in which to think, maybe mount an attack against the androids, or move somewhere else. But they decided that dwelling on their failure was not an option. They could not succumb to that sour thought. They did go on to make a new routine for themselves, train, prepare and seek for New Namek as well, which wasn't easy. Tenshinhan decided to sacrifice his entire time on spiritual training that would allow him to locate the planet. So much for getting stronger than Goku. He had to give up that chestnut. And Chi-Chi was reluctant to allow Gohan to train either. But she also knew that if they could not find New Namek, they would have to rely on Gohan to be one of their main fighters in a push back against 17 and 18. It was a somewhat hard task too. Despite everything that had gone on to try and relax Gohan down, try and settle him, all the recent events had practically undone years of hard work. In recent days, Gohan had become, well, sort of primal, regressing back to what he was like when they first encountered this new power against Scarlet Jr. It's almost like the last 6 parts never happened. What hadn't helped either was the birth of Super Saiyan. Discovering that power was more of a curse rather than a blessing or an ace in the hole, the stress of that first transformation had really done a number on Gohan's psyche, and it took months before he even got back to where he was before the androids struck. Still though, they kept pushing. For months. For years. More of the same. Training. Finding new ways to get to New Namek, in case things didn't work. And eventually, curiosity got the better of them. With the help of Bulma's capsules, she had been able to bring with her a very sizable workshop hangar and materials to work with, making some kind of tools to aid their reclaiming of Earth. It was risky though. It amounted to one of the team transmitting back to Earth to the lookout where Popo had remained, him being locked to protecting the residents. He couldn't go with them, he was stuck there, and then releasing some of Bulma's drones to scour the planet for any clues as to what the teens were doing. Maybe they'd taken themselves out perhaps, hopefully. Thanks to them being able to cloak themselves too, they could scout about for a while before coming back to the lookout to await extraction and recharging. The cycle would repeat like this for months. But what they had managed to gather from all of this data gathering was that the androids had been performing some sort of a slow burner when it came to tearing apart Earth. They weren't really ruling it either, but rather attacking places just for sheer amusement. When Goku had been offed, they must have had no further instruction. So it was up to their sick and twisted whims what they did next. But still, what was assuring though, was that civilization had not fallen. Not yet at least. And although the Yardratian powers they had and had built upon were amazing, their gains were still not enough. Sure, they were getting stronger, but not at the rate that they needed. And New Namek had proven to be rather elusive too. Tenshinhan had not made any progress after years of trying. Where was King Kai when they needed him? Yeah, where was he in the history of Trunks? But they had managed to calm Gohan down in the meantime, who was now a proper teenager. He had adopted now a more monk-like lifestyle, and was not really focusing on becoming the defender of Earth anymore. Quite frankly, he was trying his best just to get by and not go mad from all of this upheaval that he had had to go through. Still though, after years of this, training and rehabilitation, he had realised that it was selfish for him to not think about his friends and family, as well as the people of Earth. So one day, he used instant transmission without either backup or telling the others to head for the planet. When he got there, he breathed in the air of it. It had been a long time since he was last here. It hadn't been destroyed. The blue sky was still there. The forest that he had transmitted to was peaceful and lush. However, that tranquility was gone as soon as he had found a nearby village. Any human settlement where people were living, they were all in a constant state of fear of being targeted by the androids and their sick games. Eventually, he found them, after the latest trail of destruction in an abandoned theme park. 18 spotted Gohan, but thanks to the wonders of aging, she didn't recognize him at first. Huh? Oh, look, bro. Someone came to play. Are you lost, little boy? Gohan didn't say a word and powered up to Super Saiyan. No way! Sis, it's that kid! What a glow up! Literally. Well, this looks like fun. 18 sat down, knowing that 17 had a score to settle with this one. Yeah, this does look like fun. Come on, kid! Lamp brother in the eye for me! What? Sis? Whose side are you on? 18 guffawed. Admit it! It's been boring around here with nobody to fight, and you know it. She's got a point. Okay, pal. Give it all you got. Gohan landed the first punch. Its direction was square and true. But like how it went down when Gohan went Super Saiyan for the first time on 17 all those years ago, it didn't really do much to the android. 17 sighed. Come on, was that it? Don't let me down, buddy. I was really getting into this. Gohan couldn't believe it. He was sure that he had put all of his strength into that one hit. Surely that would have been enough to not only do some damage to the cyborg, but possibly tear his cranium clean off of his neck. But this annoying metal tin can, or whatever they were, Gohan didn't care, just took it, as if Gohan had just lightly tapped him on the cheek in a jovial manner. Well, I can tell you all out there, Gohan wasn't in the least bit jovial right now. 18 was circling them both, still with a look of concern on her face. Unlike her brother, she was wary about this one. She knew how much those Dragon Team fools got riled up about such things as pain and misery. If 17 wasn't careful, he could wind up with some problems that could escalate. She was ready to help her brother out if the need would arise. 17 reiterated his bravado, since Gohan had chosen not to indulge him the first time of asking. Well now, I thought you would have been more fun. Is that all you got? Y'all skipped town rather quickly. Like rats from a sinking ship. I can see why now. You're nothing. Gohan still didn't answer back, despite being likened to vermin. 18 joined in this time. Yeah, at this point, my brother will probably end you all by himself, kid. This was extremely stupid of you. Please tell me you had a plan. 18 was then interrupted during her lyrical waxing by second Gohan. Huh? This one materializing right next to her face and kicking her in said face. Once again, my friends, this was only for minimal damage, but it was still nice for Gohan to see a look of surprise on that smug face. Maybe, if he could spook them enough into an error, he might be able to get somewhere. 18 then rounded on Gohan, and the pair of them locked eyes on one another. That's a neat trick. There's two of you now. Well, you're both gonna pay for that. 18 was counterattacking the second Gohan far more now. She was starting to take this encounter seriously. The son of Goku knew that his spirit-controlled clone wouldn't last forever. Despite this being a much more enhanced iteration of multiform, something that Pibara and Tenshinhan had cooked up together in recent years, he was at least slightly happy to at least see some semblance of irritation forming on the twins' jaws. The android's twin brother was still toying with him though. It's not that the hits weren't connecting or anything, they did. The problem laid in the fact that these blows were just too weak. Even though Gohan could get the jump on them and keep them from gaining the upper hand, at least for the moment, he simply couldn't wear them down. This being the moment when Gohan fully realized just how durable these monstrosities were. But, nevertheless, he kept attacking, and he kept dodging. He had to. After all, he was pretty good at dodging, although his spirit cloning technique was halving his overall power. But he knew he couldn't tire those two out, no matter what he did. It turned out they weren't capable of feeling exhaustion. That was becoming crystal clear very quickly. It seemed that Gohan's initial plan had failed. He had hoped to wear them down, or at least divide them a bit, but all he had done was severely anger them, keeping their gaze on him. What was he supposed to do now? Maybe gigantification might work, but it could make him an easy target than he already was. Then 17's punch connected. Gohan felt the taste of blood. Gohan had to stop this thinking on the fly. It wasn't working. He was overthinking things. It was causing him to make the mistakes, not those two like it was intended. Those two, they didn't need to use tactics. They just acted on almost primal instincts, gut feelings. They just did, and it got results. They were chaotic and very effective when in the right mood. He hissed when 18 had managed to blast his first clone away. Now the two of them were wailing on him in unison. The thing that he had tried so much to avoid because he knew how good it was. And he knew also that it wouldn't be possible to stall them for much longer. Also, him going alone, he had no backup. Nobody knew he was here. He was on his own, not helped by the fact that he had a third clone on Yardrat keeping up appearances. He was starting to regret that. Could all those years of training have yielded such minuscule increases in power? His gain should have been much bigger than this. His father, in his time on Yardrat, had become so much stronger with the same type of training. Another hit, an energy blast, gut punch. Gohan was really struggling at this point. Not only was he not stronger seemingly than them right now, but he had also started to make even more mistakes than before, and looking more and more haggard by the second with his overall lot. The twins were reveling in this frustration. They could see it plastered clearly on his mug. All those other humans, they were so squishy and boring, or whoever was left. Gohan's return had been just the thing they needed to regain some sort of clarity or gusto. Well, if it makes you feel any better, this might be the longest fight that we've had in, ever. Yeah, definitely better than your dear old man, blowing himself up like a coward like that. At least you have the sense to stay in one piece, bud. Then again, your little stunt there kinda makes you two pieces, but I'll take it. These words echoed in Gohan's head for a moment. He still couldn't make neither heads or tails as to why he was so dang weak. He had more gain, surely. He had more strength, surely. Then it hit him. Why he had been failing up till now. It had been staring him in the face, or more accurately, his mind. Something was holding him back. All that overthinking, all that focus. It turned out that maybe the main core of his Yardratian training had been the exact thing doing him a disservice. When it came down to it, the brass tacks, the source of his primal power, was born from instinct and nature. To rein it in with these paltry methods was turning out to be counterproductive. Had he wasted his time doing all this? All that strength, everything he had gained was really locked behind a figurative door in his mind that he promised to never open to anyone. The majority of his training as a kid had been about containing that power instead of learning how to use it properly. People were scared of him, not enticed to try and make use of that power. They treated him as some kind of freak. At this moment, he was flailing around like a rag doll in the presence of horrifying automatons. But now, something was about to change that dynamic forever, seemingly. His father was gone. His hopes were gone. And quite frankly, all his cares were gone. And now the androids were just mocking his father's demise, like they were crowbars busily trying to hit the door that locked away his true might, trying to prise it open. Don't you dare speak about my father. 17 face-palmed himself in mock understanding. Oh, that's right, I forgot. You got a point, kid. He isn't worth mentioning after all. You know, for all the fuss Jerome made of him, he was nothing special. He'll easily be forgotten. Just like you, it was getting worse. Gohan felt like those doors in his mind were starting to change shape, deform, as if something were banging from the inside, trying to force its way out. He was hanging on to dear life for his sanity. And all the androids were doing right now was stoking that ire. "This whole shindig," said 18. "It wasn't hard after there was nothing left when he went kaboom. But in a way, you could say that your father's everywhere and nowhere." "Ah, what's the matter? Are we getting you angry?" Those impish faces were looming over Gohan. For a brief moment, he went stone cold. All of that seething emotion had just vanished all of a sudden. Like he had basically just checked out, shut down any sort of understanding of what it meant to be human. And he gave the androids an icy look. This unnerved them a little bit, actually. Buddy?" Gohan responded quietly, but loud enough so that means you could hear him. "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." The tension broke for the twins, and they regained their cool and egged the boy on even more. "Oh, is that so? Well, go on then. Get angry. Maybe it'll be more fun. For sure you'll be more fun than your father was, and those useless friends of yours. Especially the green one. Pathetic freak." As you could probably tell, the banging on the door was just getting louder and louder at this point. The dents and bulges on the door growing ever larger, almost about to split the door in twain. "Remember father," Gohan thought. "Remember Mr. Piccolo. Remember everyone. And Lord Kami." No, another voice rang in his mind just then, overpowering that plea for calm. "Don't think. Act," it said. And that was just the thing that Gohan needed to hear right now. He was tired of thinking about other people. He was tired of thinking in general. He had to act. For a second, Gohan said nothing. The android stopped and looked at him, disappointed that they had failed seemingly in angering him any further. He was just floating there in mid-air, dripping with blood, his head tilted down, his eyes covered with black hair, his eyes obscured from view. And then he powered down. To them, it looked very much like he was giving up at this point. However, they viewed this apparent surrender as rather pathetic. The twins had lost their desire to waste Gohan now. Well, at least in a traditional sense. "Sis, I'm bored now. Let's go." 17 started to charge an attack and blasted in Gohan's general direction, not really caring whether they had hit or not. There was an explosion, smoke, and the pair simply walked away. Them not being able to sense energy, they just assumed that they'd hit Gohan and could be on their merry way, that he was wasted. Big mistake, folks. Just then, that which was once ice cold flared in the form of a giant green blaze, an explosion of pure fury. 17 turned around after feeling a blast of wind catching him off guard, and what he saw did surprise him, genuinely this time. Gohan was there, and he looked mad. 17 could only see the whites of Gohan's eyes. The boy was screaming out at the top of his lungs, but this wasn't a normal yell or scream. This was a roar. His hair began to glow with a sickly green tint, and another gust of energy blew the androids away, sending them careening into rubble. They had a really hard time against the gust of wind. What? Their faces, for the first time, were showing something resembling fear. There was no mockery in this action. This was panic. The gate was open, and someone else had taken the wheel. His muscles had become enormous, pumping blood, looking as if they were about to explode under the sheer pressure of their own existence. And yet, he charged with an amazing speed and punched 17 square in the jaw, him losing half of his teeth in the process. Looking extremely livid, 17 shouted at the monster, "You filthy son of a..." 17 couldn't finish that sentence though, because Gohan just took him by the head and hit his own knee with it. Something cracked. It was not a figurative one. 17 was screaming random gibberish. Nobody really caught what he said, as he was trying to get away from Gohan frantically. 18 was left there utterly terrified at the sudden power boost, as she herself started to bombard Gohan with energy blasts, trying to defend her brother. But they were even less effective against the terror, as his own hits were against them just a while ago. She watched in panic as her twin was trying to get away from Gohan, but the devil grabbed his arms and broke them easily by pulling them backwards and made them bend in a way that arms should not bend. Then he smacked 17 with some really heavy punches, which 17 was unable to defend. 18 charged them both in desperation, but Gohan simply grabbed her by the leg and hit her brother with her own body. 17! We have to run! Now! Now, now! She dragged her brother by the collar, but Gohan simply appeared in their way. There was no escape. No hope. He blasted them with a powerful attack, throwing them around like they were the ragdolls now. 18 was trying to fight back, but several punches cracked something in her face. 17 was trying to shield her, but everything he did failed against this onslaught. Spare us! We get it! We get it! We can change! Mercy! No more! No more! They hoped for a change in mood, for his irises to return and humanity to be restored. But instead, he tilted his head.
Mercy. You asked for mercy?
The voice that was coming out was unlike anything that they heard from him before. It was Jirel! It was all Jirel! He programmed us to hunt your father!
Did Jirel tell you to kill Piccolo? Did Jirel tell you to torture all those people?
They didn't respond.
No. You are nothing special and deserve to be forgotten.
The pair made a last-ditch attempt to escape, but Gohan got closer.
Fear not. In a sense, you will be everywhere and nowhere.
As he loaded his final blast, 18 embraced her brother when the ball of light burnt all their organic tissue straight from their chassis. And this then caused a chain reaction, which caused the bombs within their body to explode. The explosions didn't hurt Gohan at all, although it did level a large part of the landscape. He looked around at the broken world. Oh, this could all have been avoided had his friends just allowed him to use his rage instead of trying to control it. As of now, this feeling was magnificent. This power, radiating, shimmering. Something that could keep Earth safe once and for all. Forever. And Gohan, or whoever was behind the wheel right now, enjoyed this sensation. Meanwhile, on Yardrat, that third spirit control clone of Gohan was about to fade away at any second. The Yardratians then realizing that Gohan was gone, but the boy wasn't concerning himself about that right now. No. From this day on, he would defend his home planet, one way or another. Sadly, the price for this success was really high. In order to win, Gohan had to give in to his rage in a rather particular way. This wasn't going to be your usual transformation, oh no. Once you let that beast out, there was no going back. His personality had changed drastically. This was no longer the same Gohan that had arrived on Earth just an hour ago. Gohan could feel that his very soul was barely recognizable, but after all was said and done, that was a small price to pay. The androids were history. His carers were wrong. Hiding in the galaxy was not going to bring their home back. Only force would. However, as far as his allies were concerned, they didn't know about his victory. Not at all. His remaining friends and family back on Yardrat were not aware of this happenstance. From their point of view, all that they knew was that Gohan had tricked them in order to escape somewhere by using the duplication technique and was no longer on the planet. While most of them could sense ki, that was of little comfort. When they locked onto Gohan's energy, it was a little jarring. His aura had become so strange, so warped, that it threw them off for a good long while. If that was Gohan, what on earth happened? But it couldn't be. Could it? They must have made a mistake. Chi-Chi was losing her mind. She had already lost Goku. She didn't want to lose Gohan as well. She blamed herself for this occurring. She had not talked enough to her son about how he felt, trying to come up with some kind of means to reassure his troubled mind, about how the young man was most likely bearing all the weight of trying to be the one to defeat the android someday. Just him. They must have put too much pressure on him, clearly. Sadly, there was no Piccolo, no Goku, no Kami. No one else but Chi-Chi to help him with that burden. Granted, Krillin, Yamcha and Tenshinhan were strong, but despite this, they never quite managed to bond with Gohan to the extent of Piccolo. They failed to replicate that connection that Gohan had had with the Namekian, and even his father. They were unable to forge a degree of trust with him and faith that could keep Gohan from doing something reckless, which was obviously the case in the here and now. Tenshinhan seemed to blame himself the most for this blunder. He was upset in not being able to find new Namek yet, despite dedicating his non-training hours to tracking the new home of the Namekians. But now, he could try and use his power to find Gohan. He could at least try to find some solace in being able to locate Goku's boy. But what he found terrified him. Yes, that was Gohan's energy, but it was nothing like the young man that he had seen just this morning. Tenshinhan's face froze. He fell to the ground and was shocked at what he had just felt. Yamcha asked what was wrong, and all that the Triceps could muster was,
It's finally happened. It's loose.
"We need to get to Earth now, or else we might lose Gohan forever."
If we go back and the androids are still there, they will kill us. After that, there'll be no hope left for Earth, Chi-Chi. We need to survive. We must stay here until we can be sure the androids pose no danger.
There won't be another future without Gohan. None of you can even come close to those things. Well then, if you're not going, I'm going. Krillin looked at his surviving friends. You know what? I'm going with her. Tenshinhan, keep looking for Namek. Yamcha was about to utter his thoughts, but Chi-Chi glared at him, and he backed off. These two had personal beef with the androids from previous parts, and as such, the two of them then instant transmission to Earth. But what they saw was unexpected. Whilst it was still in ruins after years of bombardment from 17 and 18's games, understandably, the mood didn't reflect that. There was a movement going on. It was a very different one. From what they could hear, people weren't screaming in horror or fleeing for their lives, no. People were celebrating? When the pair of them got closer to a nearby settlement, the source of this noise, people were flooding what was left of the streets, cheering. What happened here? Krillin was surprised, but Chi-Chi felt hopeful. Did Gohan do it? Krillin looked seriously back at his partner. Chi-Chi, we don't know where Gohan's head is at right now. We gotta be careful. Apparently, some mysterious young savior had come by not long ago and had destroyed the androids all by himself. It was a shock to all, including these two. The androids who would usually show up nearby to play had not turned up. Rumors had started to circulate that they were gone, and then their thoughts were confirmed by him showing up. They were wiped out by that powerful hero that they had never seen before. People were gathering to pay him a tribute. Tribute? What was going on? As they ventured further into the throng of onlookers, they saw a large pile of said tributes, left by extremely grateful people. And amongst it, talking to the authorities, was Gohan. And yet, it wasn't Gohan. He looked very different to what they remembered. Chi-Chi had never seen her son like this. He was larger, bulkier than before. His eyes were solid white, and his hair no longer jet black, but yellow. But this wasn't your typical Super Saiyan. Was this truly the animalistic force that they had been frantically attempting to bottle up all this time? As she ran toward him to embrace her son, two guards blocked their path, readying their weapons, thinking these two to be android sympathizers. This then attracted Gohan's attention, and he looked up, spotting Krillin and his mother. Gohan then spoke, but calmly with a deep voice.
It's all right. Let them pass.
When Chi-Chi ran toward her son, she hugged him, but he didn't reciprocate the gesture. He just stood there while she embraced him. You did it! You actually did it! But why did you have to run away like that, Gohan? We could have helped! Gohan remained silent, but then uttered,
For how long?
Gohan?
For how long will this planet be safe for, Mother?
Chi-Chi was confused, but Krillin kind of understood.
This peace is transitory. How long will it be until the next threat inevitably emerges?
Gohan looked up to the sky, as if the light was soothing his face in the scorched planet.
Call Bulma,
he resumed.
We need Capsule Corp back in action to rebuild and prepare.
Prepare? For what? Gohan gave them a stern look.
To prepare for whatever comes next. There will always be new dangers manifesting themselves, Mother. It's time we take care of them before they start.
Chi-Chi was unnerved by the steadfast and unwavering Gohan. No sign of emotion emanating from him at all in this entire conversation. Gohan, you need to rest. You can let this form go. You've been through a lot, certainly, but...
Why would I do that?
Chi-Chi blinked twice. Gohan, what are you talking? This is where Gohan turned around to fully face his mother for the first time, and his eyes pierced her very core.
You told me for years that the best course of action was to keep all this power locked up, like a caged animal. But the truth is that it was the answer to all our problems. You were wrong. You were all wrong. I did what I had to do to take our revenge.
Chi-Chi was fighting a losing battle. Tears were starting to well up. The androids are gone, Gohan. You can rest now. She tried to plead with her son. Krillin looking at Gohan, worried. Gohan? Buddy? You're starting to freak me out.
There is no rest!
Gohan boomed so that everyone could hear.
We have a duty to keep this planet and its people safe. I will be restrained no longer. I shall bring peace to this world, and you two can either help me, or you can be gone from my sight!
Chi-Chi was nervous about this and grabbed Gohan by the arm. Sweetie, what are you saying? Gohan, you have to knock this off! Return to us! The danger is Gohan knocked her out with a gentle and yet precise hit. Gohan! What the hell? Krillin looked absolutely shocked whilst Gohan remained calm.
Didn't you do this to calm me down, Krillin? Not so easy when the roles are reversed.
He looked down at the unconscious body of his mother.
My mother has been through a lot, and she needs some rest. But Krillin, stop wavering and call Bulma. Now.
Krillin was not very happy about this whole ordeal, but he'd rather not anger this new Gohan, or whatever this person was. One crumb of comfort was that he wasn't entirely gone, as he had caught Chi-Chi before she could collapse on the ground with full force, and promptly left her with the local doctors and nurses. Krillin used instant transmission to bring everyone back to Earth, explaining the entire situation. Bulma wasn't really sure what to think about this new state of being that Gohan had acquired, but she did agree with him that they needed to help the planet rebuild, and that they did. Initially, they aided with reconstruction work, with Gohan being active throughout the whole process. He was also insisting on bolstering the security division of Capsule Corp and the new society to the point of being an invigilator, like he was some kind of divine being overseeing the people, his creation. Bulma was initially skeptical about this. That is until they then discovered that the Red Ribbon Army were up to something. They had been still operating under the guise of Red Farmer and were busy trying to recover something from the ruins of Dr. Giroux's lab. Apparently, there was one more bio-android left that they had missed, locked away in a sub-lab deep in the mountains outside North City that was still growing. But Gohan had managed to intercept these bad guys and destroy said Bugman, killing off the remaining members of the Red Ribbon Army before they were able to transport this creature to a safer location. This had brought Bulma to a very grim conclusion. Gohan might have been right about everything. What they needed was constant surveillance, seemingly. Especially since Red Pharmaceuticals had been seemingly operating under their very noses for all this time and they had no idea. But one added bonus from this was that this did allow Capsule Corp to score some of their old technology, speeding up the rebuilding process. No end. But Gohan had become so popular as the hero of Earth that he was elected as their new king. No, not a king, an emperor. Chi-Chi was upset about her son's current behavior, but he was actively avoiding contact with her, to the point where their relationship seemingly was nothing like mother and son anymore. It had become cold and uncaring. Krillin, Tenshinhan, and Yamcha, however, were still searching for new Namek, despite Earth being safe again, not being fully happy on what Gohan and Bulma were trying to do. But they were convinced to at least teach a little bit at the brand new martial arts academy. Emperor Gohan wanted people to know how to fend for themselves. Not only that, but Gohan wanted Puar and Oolong to train more shapeshifters, remembering their expertise from early ventures. So Earth, for once, would have spies amongst galactic society to help them against interstellar threats before they arrived. Naturally, these two were opposing this rather paranoid and hostile stance on outer space. But their tune changed very quickly not long after that. After Poir was sent on their first mission to get a general overview on what was happening, this was where he discovered about the wizard Barbody, and he was heading toward Earth, wanting to awaken some ancient evil apparently. And after finding this out, Poir convinced himself of such a necessity that was his new job, thusly backing down and complying with Gohan's wishes. Also, this gave Gohan some more time to train before Barbody arrived, something which he did pretty often on his own. When Barbody got to Earth, he was surprised to see this advanced society, with all of these people wanting to check out his ship. Of course, he sent off his minions to deal with the problem, but said minions were dispatched by Earth's defensive forces. On one hand, this was good, because he could control all these useful people at once and gather the energy needed to awaken Majin Buu very quickly. But on the other hand, he had not anticipated such a sizable resistance. Earth wasn't meant to have this kind of power, what gives? Suddenly, a young man wearing blue armor with a cape arrived, tearing off the top of his ship. He had golden hair, solid white eyes with no irises, and was very bulky. Barbody felt that he could use this one for his own gains.
Hello, Wizard Barbody, I presume? I am Emperor's son Gohan. I want you off my planet.
Barbody grinned wickedly.
Oh, your highness, I can sense a lot of interesting turmoils within you. Why don't we work?
Barbody couldn't finish that sentence, because before he started casting his spell, a quickened version of the special beam cannon simply drilled through his throat, ending him instantly. Dabura then flew in immediately to fight this new opponent, and at times it got very close. That is until the so-called Emperor turned his hair green, and before Dabura could even use his spit on him, this beast had grabbed him by the throat and divided his body in two. After all was said and done, Emperor Gohan tossed Dabura's head away like a piece of trash and retreated to his throne room, like nothing had happened, other than a couple of flies had gotten in his yogurt. He had already forgotten about new Namek Gohan, about Mr. Piccolo, Kami, his father. Tenshinhan was still looking, but this wasn't his priority anymore. Gohan will keep Earth safe by himself, by any means necessary. He knew his friends were whispering behind his back that the prolonged effects of this transformation might have riddled his mind forever, but if that was the sacrifice that was needed to keep Earth safe, so be it. He was ready to take Earth into a great and glorious future. A future where his planet was no longer a victim. He looked at his plans. Spies and trained defenders. Oh, that was merely the starting point, after all. Why wait to be attacked and invaded when you can take something for yourself first? Emperor Gohan, the legendary Super Saiyan, was fulfilling the ideal of his people, being the ultimate warrior, and soon turning into the ultimate conqueror. But that's where we end things for now. What will the future hold for this dictator? We are not sure, but it might return in the strangest of places. I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later.